Thank you. Very good morning, all the students. Uh, I am a new face for you in this batch. I've taken the batch previously, but in this batch, a special request has been made to take these classes. So I'm here to take classes on the topic of audit and assessment and the next chapter as well. So today we'll be discussing two chapters. These are very interesting chapters because when you come to practicality, when you get into practice after doing your intern or if you're doing it after final, you just do your articleship also. That time you'll see these chapters are very much relevant. You will deep dive into this. You will talk about these sections very much. So, from a practical perspective, this chapter and next chapter is very important. So students who have joined in are really lucky to firstly get this topic and secondly get this topic from a practical perspective because I am into practice. So I can give you the practical perspective of this chapter also, and this chapter will become very interesting. Good morning, Mr. Ayush. Very good morning. Hope you're doing good. And in terms of introduction, I am Deepak Jain. I'm a chartered accountant and a company secretary. I practice in Bangalore and I've been into indirect taxes now for close to 15 years. You'd be wondering how can it be 15 years when GST itself is started in 2017 and it's been less than 10 years for GST, approximately 8 years. So I said that I'm into practice of indirect taxes. So before GST came in, I was practicing in service tax and excise and customs matters. So totally, I would say that that experience and GST experience totally puts it to 15 years of experience in this field. So lot of topics under the previous law are also relevant, like the provisions of the Central Excise Act, Service Tax Act, very much are relevant today. Even today, we go and attend a tribunal called as Sestat, wherein we still have pending cases of service tax and excise still going on. We have applied for hearing last year, we have not yet got it. So appeal provisions are still open. Adjudication kind of completed, but the taste of the previous law is still there. We can't forget the old law completely. It is still there. So when it comes to GST and today's topic, you have deliberated or you have learned mostly the GST topics which are relevant for you in terms of supply, input tax credit, returns, and things. But this is a new topic for you because from a perspective of I would say finalize because in inter you would have read all the previous topics, but in final, this is a new topic wherein we will learn today firstly on assessment and audit. It is very important that once we file the returns, somebody has to do the assessment because what we have done, whether it is correct or wrong, who will give us the proof, who will give us the validity. I might have filed my return wrongly by mistake. I would have done it, not with intention. So how will the government know that whether whatever I have disclosed in my return is right or wrong? Who will give that validation? That validation government needs to know more importantly than us because they want to ensure that the collection of taxes is happening correctly. If there's any leakage, they can plug in and get the taxes. That's the reason collection of taxes through assessment is important because that gives the satisfaction that yes, whatever taxes are due to the government, it has come to it. If it has not come, then it will do that inspection. It will go for search. It will find out from the intelligence who are these people who are not paying taxes and go and recover from them. Okay. So that is the scope of this chapter, wherein practically the officers also are interested in these chapters, in these specific sections, and the taxpayer also is interested because he needs to get safeguard, saying that okay, I've not paid the taxes, but I've not done any crime. I've not done a criminal offense. So you want to collect any taxes, you can collect it. So there are safeguards. That's the reason given to the taxpayer also when any wrongdoing is done. Equally, it is necessary that the department collects it in a proper manner, not in a illegal manner or improper manner. When the taxes have to be collected, it has to be collected in a proper manner. They cannot arbitrarily go and do some danga, do some chapa in somebody's place, right? Like how we see in movies, they do chapa. It's not so very dramatical that they've found somebody that they have not paid the taxes, they'll just go and do chapa in it or do a search in that place. They need to follow procedure. They have to get approval because chapa marke they'll take at least 10 officers. And if they don't find any tax, the time and resources is all wasted. And on top of it, there's a burden to the taxpayer also. So to avoid these things, the law specifies that you should be in a having some proofs or having some documents through which you are sure that yes, this person is evading the tax. Otherwise, it'll be a jungle raj, right? That every officer will go to any place and just keep doing this. So that is not possible, right? It is not very much possible that anybody you think of, you can go and do some chapa. You have to have a proper procedure. You have to follow a proper code of conduct and see that the person actually who is not paid, you have some evidence against him. If not complete evidence, at least you have some documents or you have some proofs to ensure that this person has not paid the taxes. Only then you will do this inspection, search, and seizure. Okay. So what we see in movie is very glamorous, is very kind of hyped up. Some part of it is true, but not every part of it. Okay. So now let us get into the topic first on assessment and audit. Okay. What is assessment and what is audit? So I've prepared a presentation, but any point of time, if we have to go and refer the study material, we can do that also. But to give a ease, to give pointers, whatever is the stuff from the study material, I have made some pointers. So from this pointers, we can understand what is this and kind of very, you should think of it like a story. Because if you think of it like a topic to read, then this does not have numbers. So it will become boring sometimes. But if you think of it like a story, like how you watch a movie for 3 hours, this is a movie for 3 hours. So that then you can grasp this topic and understand this topic in a very well manner. First is assessment. Now, when I want to start with the introduction of assessment, there's a shift. Why do you say there's a shift? There is a shift because GST is a tax regime like the central excise regime, service tax regime, everything. You can recollect in 2000 or before 2000 itself, till 1990, for any kind of uh, opening of a manufacturing office or a manufacturing unit, you had to get license. Okay, you have to get a manufacturing license. Only then you will be able to manufacture the goods. And heavy machineries or heavy products or goods like cigarettes, which are very excisable or which had extra duty. The highest duty was on these sin goods, tobacco products, liquor. So every clearance from the factory, when it used to happen, there used to be an officer sitting at the factory premises and he used to ensure that whatever goods are moving out, he used to record it and ensure that yes, sufficient duty has been paid on it. Because दो number के काम काफी होते थे, that any movement happens, then they never used to pay duty sometimes. So to avoid such cases, there used to be an officer sitting there and he will ensure that whatever goods are moving out, it has been properly recorded and taxes on them has been paid. But after that 1990, there used to be a globalization. With the globalization, this license Raj went off, this inspection Raj went off. But then what used to happen is every time you move the goods, you have to give a declaration. So that was also little onerous because officer was not sitting at the place, but you have to report everything. There used to be customs officers whom you have to report. Whenever you're moving goods from the bonded area to a non-bonded area, you have to report it to the officer. So those procedures used to get followed. So all that has been shifted. And in GST, you don't have to do any of those things. You have to do the assessment yourself. The officer will not sit. You will not have to go and report every supply to the officer. So the shift is happened. It's a paradigm shift, that is from the earlier government ruling you. You will do your own business without the government getting in between. And you yourself will decide the price of your goods, because price is free. You can decide your price with your customer at whatever rate, right? You have a right to sell a product at 100 rupees to one person, 150 to another person, 175 to another person, because you are deciding the pricing based on the your bargaining power and the buyer's bargaining power. And the tax rate is given in the law, the valuation is also given in the law, and the time of supply is also given. So based on that, you have to decide what is the GST you have to pay, and you will decide the things on it. So there is a shift in terms of the assessment, that you will do your own assessment. And how will you do the assessment? You have the provisions of the law. You will apply the provisions of the law and issue a tax invoice. The tax invoice itself is treated as your assessment, because once you do your self assessment, you're collecting that much taxes from the customer and you're disclosing it in the invoice. So all that thing, when you do, you're doing your own assessment. That's why there's a paradigm shift in terms of trust based regime. Earlier, the trust based regime was not there. Now, there is a trust based regime wherein there is a paradigm shift, and the government is trusting that yes, you are a businessman. Every person who is doing business in the country or outside the country, we will give you the provisions of the law. The law will be common for both the taxpayer and the officer. Based on this, you will do your assessment and file your returns. And later on, if we find any fault, we will come back to you, but we will not question every return and all the assessees. We will only question those assessees where we get the information that something wrong has happened. So there is a shift in terms of a non-trust based tax regime to a trust based tax regime. And whatever you are doing, you will file your returns correctly, is the shift in the mindset. Okay. The core mechanism for this assessment is the assessee is required to self-assess his tax liability. You yourself will do the self-assessment. So the powerful section under the GST law, the most powerful section is supply, definitely, because based on supply only all the transactions happen. The most powerful after supply is this section 59, which talks about self-assessment, wherein a assessee is required to self-assess his tax liability and file the returns, declare the turnover, and claim ITC in the same return. So claiming ITC is a benefit which you're giving, but the main important point is that the transactions, whatever you're doing it, on this transaction, you yourself are doing the assessment. So when you say under GST, who is the first assessing officer? Who is the first assessing officer who is assessing your transactions? You yourself. The taxpayer himself is the assessing officer. He is doing the self-assessment. He is doing the self-assessment of his tax liability. Based on his self-assessment, he is filing the returns and he is declaring the turnover and claiming the ITC. Okay, so the first assessment happens by him through raising the tax invoice and reporting it in the monthly GST returns. Now, what is the role of a department in this? Since the regime relies on self-assessment, right? Saying that you're doing your assessment, you are filing your returns, there has to be a robust audit and assessment mechanism is necessary to ensure compliance and prevent leakage. So they can't do a audit and assessment on a just selection basis or on a random basis. They have to have a robust system. Robust matlab, The system should be very good that there should not be any problem with the system. Seeing that they are able to identify the correct person, they're able to identify the correct wrongdoer through smart use, through use of technology, through use of artificial intelligence, through use of methods which will give the officer the power to find out or do the assessment, do a data analytics and find out based on the returns, because only the returns are available to the officer, no other information is available. But you see, the chain is like that, that you are filing your returns and your customer also is filing the returns and your vendors are also filing the returns. So there is a connection there that based on your vendor's returns, I can identify how much the vendor has sold to you. And based on that, I can do a analytics and see whether what he has sold, have you recorded that as your purchases or have you just hidden that off? Why will somebody hide your purchases? Because they have to hide the sales also. So that complete thing may be hidden or may not be disclosed. So from the data of your vendors, I will find out that what all things you have purchased. And from your customers also, I will find out that what all things you have sold and he has reported in his returns. Whether you have disclosed these things in your returns is not a verification work which I can do. I cannot come and sit at your premises and check everything. Even if I check through the smart work, I cannot find out what has been not disclosed. But through a smart innovation, smart, robust audit system, if I come prepared, saying that yes, these are the transactions you have not disclosed, then I will be in a better position to find out that yes, you have not paid the taxes, you have withhold taxes. Okay, so a robust audit mechanism is required and assessment. Audit and assessment, are there two different things? Yes, there are two different things. Audit is different, assessment is different. So the officer has both the powers. They can, some audit officers are there, some assessment officers are there. Audit officers will come and do the audit, assessment officers will come and do the assessment. Now, what is the definition of audit and assessment? We'll see, but clearly understand that there is a distinction between audit and assessment, both are not the same. Audit and assessment mechanism is necessary to ensure that compliance is happening and you can prevent the revenue leakage. Revenue leakage, why? Because when I have given the power to the taxpayer itself that you do your work, you do your strategies, you do your returns correctly, I'm not very sure whether everything what you have done is wrong, because some people will take advantage of it. So when they take advantage, can they do things wrongly? Yes, they can do things wrongly, whether intentionally or unintentionally. If it is intentional, then the penalty is higher because they've done this wrong intentionally. And people who have done this unintentionally, their intention is not to do any cheating work, but they've done it unintentionally. So there the penalty will be less. So this is the mechanism that yes, assessment will happen separately, audit will happen separately. We will go to the definition and understand because the chapters also are different. I mean, the GST chapters are also different. For assessment, you have chapter 12 of the law, and for audit, you have chapter 13 of the law. Okay, so chapter 12 is on assessment. It has ranging from sections 59 to section 54, and audit is chapter 13. It ranges from section 65 and 66. So audit means what we do, a statutory audit? No, not that. That is the audit under the Companies Act. But GST law also has provisions of audit because under the Companies Act, you will get into various aspects. All the provisions of the law will just get covered, whether a statutory audit will say whether a taxpayer is complying with all the laws, and he gives an opinion there. But the objective of statutory audit is different. The objective over here under GST law is different. That's why under GST law, the audit officer or the auditor who is doing the audit will ensure that he is seeing the books of account, he's seeing the transactions from a GST perspective. Okay. And then the assessment. Assessment ranges from section 59 to section 54. As I had already said, 59 we have discussed that the first assessment, the section under the assessment, under the chapter of assessment, also first section is section 59, which is self-assessment. So you are doing your assessment yourself in section 59. Okay. Then applicability, the provisions apply to CGST Act. Okay. So firstly, what we discussed the importance of paradigm shift, that it is moved from a no, from a control based taxation regime to a trust based tax regime. The core mechanism is the assessee is required to do the self assessment. The role of department comes in after the self assessment, saying that after you have done the assessment, whether whatever you have disclosed is right or wrong. So first you will do the assessment, then the officer will come in. Now the officer can come in through doing an assessment, saying that he knows that something wrong has happened, so he will do assessment. Or he doesn't know whether you have done wrong or right on a information what he gets, or on selection process. He will come and do an audit. So these are the two powers which the officer has. He can do assessment or he can do an audit. Now these provisions, whatever we'll discuss on assessment and audit, it will apply to the CGST Act. Definitely, these are the sections under the CGST Act itself. But are these provisions there under the State GST Act? Yes, it is there, because whatever provisions are there under the CGST Act, they are always there under the State GST Act also, except few changes are there. But majorly, all the provisions of the CGST Act are there under the SGST Act also. So CGST Act and SGST Act will go hand by hand. The rate of tax also will go by hand in hand. Correct? We know that. We have discussed that in detail in the initial chapters, that CGST and SGST will be the same. But what about IGST? Because when I do interstate transactions, CGST, SGST is same. But when I do interstate transaction, I levy a tax of C plus S, which is IGST Act. Now, what is there under CGST Act is there under the SGST Act. But what is there in the CGST Act? Is it there under the IGST Act also? No, it is not there. Assessment provisions are not there under the IGST Act. IGST Act has very few sections. CGST Act has so many sections. So how does the provisions of the CGST Act apply to the IGST Act? There is a bridging section. I'll call this as a bridging section because there is a section under the IGST Act which is called as section 20, which says that provisions of the CGST Act will apply to the IGST Act. You don't have to pre-produce all the provisions of the CGST Act to the IGST Act. Whatever is there here under the CGST Act, it will apply to the IGST Act is what it says. So section 20. Section 20 is that bridge which says that whatever provisions on these chapters, on filing returns, on doing audit, on doing assessment, on claiming of ITC, whatever is applicable under the CGST Act, it will apply to the IGST Act also. That is what section 20 bridges. That's why we say that the provisions of audit and assessment apply to CGST. Of course, it will apply to SGST also, and effectively to IGST via this section 20 of the IGST Act. Okay, awesome. Now we'll go into the key definitions. What are the main definitions which are important? Assessment. What is assessment? Assessment means determination of tax liability. Okay. Now, assessment, the term assessment has been defined. The meaning of assessment is that determining the tax liability. Now, how will you do the determination of tax liability? Firstly, by doing a self-assessment. That's why I was saying that you are a taxpayer is the officer himself. He is the assessing officer, because the first assessment under the definition of assessment also is self-assessment. So you yourself are doing the assessment of your transactions. Then there is a reassessment, wherein the officer comes and does it. It is a reassessment. Then there is provisional assessment when you don't know what is the tax you have to pay and you don't know what is the rate of tax you have to pay. Then you can go and apply for this provision called as provisional assessment. Okay, you can go and apply for provisional assessment. Then there is a provision of summary assessment when you are not doing the filing properly. The tax officer will do a summary assessment, do a block assessment. So that is called as summary assessment. And then best judgment assessment when you do not file your returns on time. Okay, the officer can wait, saying that, okay, this taxpayer is busy. He has cash crunch issues. He will file the returns, but how long can he wait? He cannot wait beyond some point of time. He will wait for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. He will wait for 6 months. After 6 months, also, if you do not file the returns based on your previous returns, he will do a best judgment assessment. Now, what happens in a best judgment assessment? Based on your previous returns, he will consolidate the data. He will see the data, what is there previously, and do the best judgment assessment. Okay, so these are the various assessment which is possible under the law. The law itself, our GST law itself defines what is assessment. Assessment includes, firstly, assessment means determining the tax liability, and then it says that it will include self-assessment, reassessment, provisional assessment, summary assessment, and best judgment assessment. Sir, we discussed assessment, but we also said there is audit. So what is audit? That is where there is a definition of audit. Audit means a detailed examination of the records, returns, and other documents. In assessment, he is not doing any examination. Based on the data what you filed itself, he is getting into the tax liability. But audit is a step behind. Audit is detailed examination of your records, returns, and the documents. Why will the officer do the examination? The objective is to verify the correctness of the turnover, the taxes paid, the refund claim, and the ITC availed. So to determine whether you have in the returns, whatever because the returns is the only thing which the officer gets from the returns, from the e-way bill, from the e-invoicing, which is the things which are available to a officer. He will verify the correctness of your turnover. He will verify whether the taxes paid is correct, because turnover is one, taxes paid will be different, because from the turnover you calculate the output tax, then you claim the input tax credit, then final tax is paid. So he will determine what is your turnover, whether the taxes paid is correct, whether refund you have claimed. There are some cases where you can claim refund, whether the refund you have claimed is correct, and whether the important thing, the ITC, the input tax credit, what you have claimed, it is correct or no, will be determined in a audit assignment. So audit assignment happens when a letter is given to you saying that we want to do audit, right? When you as a businessman also wants to get your business audited, you will go to the auditor and say that come and do the audit of my thing. So there is a prior information, prior intimation that somebody will come and do the audit. Similarly, under GST also, if the officer has to do the audit, he will give a prior intimation and come and do the audit. Okay. Now, very important term are across this discussion, we will use a term called proper officer. Who is a proper officer? A commissioner under the law, or the officer who is assigned the function by the commissioner. He is a proper officer. A commissioner is one. Can he go and do the verification, scrutiny of all the taxpayers in India are under his jurisdiction? Practically not possible. So that's why the officer will give the responsibility to his junior. He will tell that, okay, for all this taxpayers residing in area of Kandivali, you have to do the assessment. So he is giving his power. The power is generally there with the commissioner through a specific letter. he will give this power to the other officers and say that, okay, this area you have to do, this area you have to do. So jurisdictionally, pin code wise, they will divide it. After that, also, they will divide officers on another basis, saying that based on this audit work, these are the audit officers, and these are the assessing officers. So the person who is getting that power from the commissioner, that person is a proper officer. Very, we will not use the term as assessing officer or audit officer under GST law. We will tell audit, which is done by proper officer. Assessment is done by another proper officer. So proper officer is a very important term because he is the officer who's got the proper authority to do that work. So that authority comes from the commissioner. So section 291 defines proper officer, or popularly called as PO. Okay, it's called popularly known as PO. Whether the PO has power, whether the PO has authority. When we say PO, it means the proper officer, and that proper officer will be the commissioner or the officer who's assigned that function by the commissioner. So commissioner will assign separate functions to separate officers. Clear till here? So this is the basic introduction before we get into the provisions of the sections. Give me one moment. Okay. So proper officer, a person who is authorized by the commissioner to do specific tasks or the task which is given to him, he is a proper officer. जो ऑफिसर को जो काम असाइन किया जाता है उसे कहेंगे प्रॉपर ऑफिसर. ठीक है. Next, we'll get into the provisions of assessment. Why are we coming here directly to section 59? We went to the definitions and we said that this chapter of assessment is starting from section 59 to section 54. So we will get into each of these sections of 59 to 64 and understand them in detail. So firstly, 59. 59 says self-assessment. Very simple. Every registered person. So first क्या है? Registered person होना चाहिए. आप ये नहीं बोल सकते हो आप unregistered हो and you have done your assessment. If you are registered, only then you can do your assessment. If you are unregistered, can you do your assessment? You can determine saying that, okay, my turnover is below the limit, so I'm not getting registered. That's fine. But you're not getting into the payment of taxes. So payment of taxes and claiming exemption, claiming input tax credit is possible only by a registered person. So every registered person shall self-assess the tax payable. Every registered person shall self-assess the tax payable. The registered person can do the self-assessment of his tax payable. How will you do this assessment? You will do the assessment for the tax period. So there'll be a tax period. Some will have monthly tax period. We know people who are having less turnover and they want to opt for quarterly returns. They can go for quarterly. So that is a tax period you have got. If you're a quarterly taxpayer, you have an option of a quarterly tax period. If you're otherwise a normal taxpayer, your tax period is a monthly thing. So you assess tax for the tax period and furnish the returns under section 39. Do your assessment under section 59. That is, identify what is your output tax, what is your turnover, what is your output tax, claim your input tax, and say this is your tax payable. Calculate that and furnish the returns, because whatever calculation you're doing, you have to report it. You will do that reporting in the returns under section 39. That is our GSTR 3B. So whatever outward supplies we have to do in terms of GSTR 1, then it will come to our GSTR 3B. You will reduce your ITC. We know that mechanism. So under section 39, we will mention all of this, right? So we will determine the tax liability. We are doing our self-assessment ourselves in our books of accounts, in our Excel, in our records, whatever it may be. So you're doing assessment. So first you are doing the assessment of tax for the tax period and giving this information through furnishing. So self-assessment doesn't mean you do your self-assessment and just keep quiet. You have to do a self-assessment and furnish the return. Because if you do not furnish the return, the officer will not get to know. So again, there's a bridge saying that you have done an assessment. Officer doesn't know. How will he know? When you do the assessment and file your returns, then that assessment is complete. Because when the officer also does any assessment, he's done, okay, everything is fine, now you go home. Will you be okay? You will not be okay. You will tell, give me some document or give me a undertaking saying that I have filed the returns correctly. I have my assessment is completed. Give me an assessment order. Similarly, your assessment happens through the tax invoice, through the invoices, what you make purchases, and the order. Think of the return like an order. So all the details, what you're doing in the assessment, you will furnish the return under section 39. Okay. So assessment is a two-step process. You will do the assessment and furnish the return under section 39. What is the significance of this? This is a standard operating procedure. Department intervention, that is department getting into in terms of scrutiny or audit, only begins when this process is deemed insufficient or incorrect. सेल्फ असेसमेंट इतना स्ट्रांग है कि उसको चैलेंज करना है किसी ऑफिसर को, तो उसे प्रूव करना पड़ेगा कि आपका सेल्फ असेसमेंट गलत था या फिर आपका सेल्फ असेसमेंट सफिशिएंट नहीं है. So he has to prove that the self-assessment what you have done is not sufficient or it is incorrect. Then only he can do the other things under the law. That is, then he can do the other scrutiny of the returns and audit under the law. So first is your returns are important. Once you file your returns, then the officer will step in and he will do the scrutiny or audit after that. Okay. Next is, so that is simple. Section 59 self-assessment is only simple, only this, that you are assessing the tax for the tax period and furnishing your return. Okay. And if the officer has to do something, he has to challenge this, saying that आई मीन चैलेंज मतलब कोर्ट में चैलेंज करने की जैसा नहीं है. It's just simple thing that he has to have some proper grounds to say that your self-assessment is wrong. Only then he can get into the scrutiny and audit of your returns. Next is provisional assessment. Section 59 is self-assessment. Now section 60, it's a provisional assessment. When is a provisional assessment needed? When a tax person is unable to determine what he's unable to determine, firstly, whether he's unable to determine the value or the rate of tax. If he is unable to do these two things, he is not able to determine the value or the rate of tax, then he can go for provisional assessment. Okay. When he is not able to decide the value, जैसे if there is a related party transaction, in valuation we have seen that if any transaction which is not based on the price, where price is not the sole consideration and it is between related parties, then valuation has to be done. Otherwise, whatever is the value, that is the transaction value itself is the value. But when it comes to related party transactions, और आपको valuation decide नहीं कर पा रहे हो, because the law says when you do a related party transaction, go to the valuation rules and determine it. Now, I've gone to the valuation rules, but still मेरा value में determine नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ, then you can go for provisional assessment. Because for according to you, your value is say 1 lakh rupees. But when you sell to outsiders, the value is 10 crore rupees. Why? Because it's a related party, so I'm charging 1 lakh rupees. Now, you are not sure whether कि 1 करोड़ के transaction के लिए अगर मैं 1 लाख कर रहा हूँ वो सही है या नहीं है. Because it's my related party, I feel it is correct, but I always have a doubt whether the officer will accept it. So, in such related party transactions, my value, I'm not very clear, then I will go for provisional assessment. First situation. Second situation is when there are complex valuation rules. Valuation rules बोलता है आपको आपने पढ़ा नहीं है, right? Because you have only read section 15. When you go to valuation rules, it says you have to find the value of your product. If you are not able to determine value of your product, value of a similar product. Similar नहीं हो सकता है तो identical product. अगर वो भी मालूम नहीं पड़ता है तो फिर then you have to go for costing. आपके कॉस्ट कितना है प्लस 10% मार्कअप, लेकिन आपके बिजनेस में आपका 2% मार्कअप ही है. So valuation rules also is not giving me clarity. Valuation rules is becoming very complex, saying that do this valuation based on this, but I am not able to determine that also. So when the valuation rules itself are complex, then also I can go for provisional assessment. So I'm just giving you instances. Any case where your value you're not able to determine, then you can go for provisional assessment. Second is when the tax rate is not correct or you are not clear on it. Classification disputes. That is, you are classifying this as a product of, say, suppose a book is there. One person is deciding that the rate of books will be 5%. Another competitor of you is saying, no, it is 12%. Now, if you charge 5%, saying it is a lower rate, tomorrow if the officer comes and if he finds out it is actually 12%, तो फिर आपको differential tax और उसके ऊपर interest and penalty pay करना पड़ेगा. So you don't know whether this specific product is to be classified as at a rate of 5% or rate of 12%. So when you have classification disputes and the dispute is between you and your competitor and you are not sure what should be the correct classification, so in that case also you can go for provisional assessment. Or you don't know, generally confusion होता है composite supply और mixed supply में, because both having multiple products bundled together. एक है naturally bundled है, एक artificially bundled है. But clarification confusion ये है कि मेरा product है, is this treated as naturally bundled to call it as composite supply or is it artificially bundled to call it as mixed supply? तो आपको ये कंफ्यूजन है कि मेरा प्रोडक्ट क्लासिफिकेशन क्या है. ठीक है. In such situation also, what we can do is we can go for provisional assessment. How this provisional assessment happen? We'll see the steps, but understand कब कब हम इस provision को use कर सकते हैं? When there are two things, when my value is not determinable or my rate is not determinable. In one situation, my values I'm able to determine. I'm not able to determine the tax rate. Then also I can go for it. In another situation, I can determine the rate, but value मुझे पता नहीं है. Even in that situation, I can go for provisional assessment. So you can go for provisional assessment in three situations. One, when you know the value, you do not know the rate. Second is you know the rate, but you do not know the value. In third situation, आपको valuation और rate दोनों पता नहीं चल रहा है. Then you can go for provisional assessment. The taxpayer can request to pay tax on a provisional basis कि my transaction is over बाबा, I cannot wait to get clarity. ठीक है, जब तक क्लैरिटी आएगा तब तक मैं ट्रांजैक्शन रोक के नहीं रख सकता हूं. So in that situation, I can pay tax on a provisional basis, saying that you will say to the officer, there is the product, the rate is 5 or 12, I don't know, but provisionally we will decide at a rate and I will pay this. Now you determine and tell me what is the tax I have to pay. By the time you decide and come, my transactions cannot stop. So I will continue making my transactions. I will continue making my sales. GST जो है मैं provisionally pay करूंगा. But once the officer decides, then I will pay the differential. So the taxpayer can request to pay the tax on a provisional basis. Till then, what you have to do, you have to furnish a application electronically with reasons and the supporting documents. Okay, you have to furnish the application for provisional assessment क्योंकि normal जो है हम returns file करते हैं और tax rate हम decide करते हैं, लेकिन provisional assessment में क्या होगा, the rate I'm not sure, value I'm not sure, so I will apply to the officer. तो इसीलिए प्रोसीजर देख लेते हैं यहाँ पे. प्रोसीजर इज द प्रॉपर ऑफिसर में इश्यू अ नोटिस फॉर एडिशनल डॉक्यूमेंट. फर्स्ट इज यू हैव टू अप्लाई. I have to apply saying that I have these transactions and I want to come for provisional assessment. The proper officer, because provisional assessment के लिए एक proper officer है, उसके पास ही आपको जाना पड़ेगा. The proper officer will issue a notice for any additional documents required since you have submitted your application, provided all the documents, right? अब उसको में आपको डाउट है या ऑफिसर को ही डाउट है, बिकॉज आपको डाउट है रेट वगैरह, लेकिन आपने फैक्ट्स ठीक से दे दिया, आपने राइटिंग में दे दिया कि आई वांट अ प्रोविजनल असेसमेंट अंडर सेक्शन 60. दिस इज माय नेचर ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन. आई फील द रेट इज दिस. नाउ यू डिसाइड एंड टेल मी द रेट. So once you make that application, the officer के पास जाएगा. The officer will issue a notice calling for additional documents, saying that आपने जो document submit किया वो काफी नहीं है, आप मुझे और भी documents clarity के लिए दीजिए. So he will ask for additional documents. He will ask for additional documents and he may also call that the person to appear before him, क्योंकि उसको oral clarification चाहिए कुछ चीजों का. So he will call you saying that give me some additional information that he can call. So first step is scrutiny, that I will apply for it and he will call for information. He will do the assessment. The provisional assessment क्या है? I am giving him the application कि मेरा transaction है, इसको provisionally assess करो. So he will take some time. So applicant may appear in person. हम personally भी जाके उसको समझा सकते हैं. Based on this, the again PO is used here. The proper officer issues an order allowing the provisional payment, saying that ठीक है भैया, what we will do is you do the business, but you do not know the rate. So I will see your documents and I will say, okay, for this next 6 months, you pay taxes at 12%. Okay. Whether it is 5 or 12 will decide now. Now you pay 12%. अगर 5% होगा, then I'll give you a refund. So the proper officer issues an order allowing for provisional paying, saying that आप जो भी transaction कर रहे हो उसके ऊपर this rate, what we both are, what I am deciding, you pay at this rate. Okay. Now, when should the provisional assessment be completed? The time limit says is within 90 days from the receipt of request, the officer should complete it. क्योंकि ऑफिसर के पास अगर टाइम नहीं रहेगा, so he will take ages. ठीक है, वो आराम से 4-5 साल लेगा और ऐसे ही चलते रहेगा, दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल. So firstly it says that within 90 days from the date of request you have to do the provisional assessment. Content of the order, the final order जो आएगा इसमें what should he specify? He shall specify the value or rate to be applied provisionally and the amount of bond or security. So first जब application आएगा ऑफिसर के पास, he has to pass an order. He has to pass an order, क्योंकि ऑर्डर रहेगा तो फिर फाइनलाइजेशन रहेगा. इट्स अ प्रोविजनल ऑर्डर. नाउ व्हाट इज द प्रोविजनल ऑर्डर सेज दैट he will specify the value and what is the rate to be applied provisionally, and कि अगर रेट ऊपर हो गया, सो टुडे वी आर सेइंग दैट आई डोंट नो वेदर माय रेट इज 5% और 12%, तो ऑफिसर अलोज हिम टू पे एट 5%. लेकिन अगर कल रेट बढ़ गया, ही विल से नो आई विल नॉट पे. सो इसीलिए ही विल ऑल्सो स्पेसिफाई एन अमाउंट ऑफ बॉन्ड एंड सिक्योरिटी. बॉन्ड क्या है? वी नो दिस बॉन्ड, राइट? एम्प्लॉयमेंट बॉन्ड वगैरह सुना है, सेइंग दैट एम्प्लॉय विल नॉट लीव विद इन 1 year. Similarly, GST may be, he has to give a bond which says that it's a binding document where the taxpayer agrees to pay the differential tax. अगर रेट ज्यादा हो गया तो मैं पे करूंगा. लाइक दैट ही इज गिविंग एन अंडरटेकिंग, उसे कहते हैं बॉन्ड. सिर्फ बॉन्ड लिखित में काफी है. आई विल टेल ओके आई विल गिव यू 1 लाख रुपीज, इज इट सफिशिएंट? आई शुड ऑल्सो गिव यू दैट अमाउंट, और आई शुड गिव यू अ बैंक गारंटी. सो बैंक गारंटी क्या होता है कि मैं बैंकर के पास जाऊंगा, आई विल टेल गिव मी अ बैंक गारंटी, you have my bank account with me, that in the event I do some breach my contract, then you can pay this 1 lakh from my bank account to the person to whom I'm giving a guarantee. So a bank guarantee is a document from the bank, and you will submit to the department saying that if I do not pay anything, you can take money from my bank account. You can initiate that bank guarantee. Okay, so that is called as the bank guarantee document when I'm giving a bond and a bank guarantee. Bond is just a oral, is a written statement, not a oral statement, sorry, written statement saying that I will pay the differential, but it will be supported by a bank guarantee, because बोलने में तो हर लोग कोई भी बोल देता है, will you pay the officer? It's a transaction of money, और ऑफिसर ऐसे आपके कहने पे बात नहीं मानेगा. Correct? So it has to be a bond saying that I will pay the differential liability if the tax rate is decided higher, and to support this, I will give you a bank guarantee. What will be the quantum of this bank guarantee? The PO decides the amount, saying that the proper officer will decide कि मेरे को 1 लाख रुपए का bond देना है. Whatever is the bond value, उसका 25% will be the bank guarantee. क्योंकि मेरा ट्रांजैक्शन 1 लाख, आई एम जस्ट सेइंग, बट पर्सन हु विल अप्लाई फॉर प्रोविजनल असेसमेंट ही मे हैव crores of rupees. So crores of rupees is under discussion and I have to pay crores of rupees of bank guarantee. तो फिर क्या फायदा? No, I will give a bond for 1 crore rupees, or 25% of that I will give you a bank guarantee. ठीक है? The convenience is a bond furnished under the CGST Act is deemed to be furnished under the other acts also. So अगर आप CGST में दे रहे हो तो आपको SGST में अलग से देने की जरूरत है नहीं. Whatever bond you're giving under one law, it is sufficient for CGST, SGST, and IGST, all the three laws. Okay, so that is the procedure for provisional assessment. How is it finalized? First is he's given you a order here. Here we have discussed, right? This is called a first provisional order. Here he will specify the value and rate to be applied provisionally. तो इसीलिए आप बैंक गारंटी और बॉन्ड और बैंक गारंटी दे रहे हो. Then finalization of assessment कैसे होगा? When the PO issues a notice calling for information to finalize the assessment. Initially, he is given a interim provisional order. Then he will ask for additional information to finalize the order. अगर उसको determine कर दिया उसने, he's determined saying that okay, based on this, based on the transaction what you're doing, and on my reading of the law, 5% is the GST rate. So he'll give you the final order wherein he'll specify the final amount payable or refundable, and based on that you are having a clarity. Now, what is the time limit for which he can do a final order? Within 6 months from the communication of provisional order, he has to do it. So there are two time limits. One is the time limit for issuance of provisional order. So there are two orders: provisional order, one is final order. Within 90 days from the date of receipt of request, he has to give a provisional order, no extension there. But to give that final order, he has to take time, he has to read it, study it. So the officer has been given additional time to finalize it. So within 6 months from the communication of the provisional order, he has to pass the final order. Extension मिल सकता है ऑफिसर को? Yes. ऑफिसर को भी एक्सटेंशन मिल सकता है when if from 6 months जो है normal time limit है, but he wants extension, he will get an extension of additional 6 months if he gets approval from the joint commissioner or additional commissioner. ठीक है, so 6 + 6 1 month 1 year हो गया है. Within 1 year is completed, fine. If he's not completed within 1 year, then he will get extension up to 4 years. लेकिन अप्रूवल किसका चाहिए? हायर द हायरार्की, नॉट द जॉइंट कमिश्नर और एडिशनल कमिश्नर. वहां पे उसको कमिश्नर के पास जाना पड़ेगा and to get the approval. You do not have to go because this is extension of time for the officer. So officer will have to go to the joint commissioner or additional commissioner for 6 months. अगर वहां पे भी नहीं हुआ तो देन ही हैज टू गो टू द कमिश्नर. तो कमिश्नर ऐसे ही फ्री नहीं बैठा है. He will tell why are you coming for extension, what are the reasons, why didn't you finish it within 6 + 6 months. एक साल का टाइम आपको दिया है, you should have completed. So going to the commissioner also is tedious for him. So effectively what happens, he is getting a statutory time of 6 months. Then he will go to the assistant or additional commissioner, get another 6 months time. There also, if it's not sufficient, then he'll go to the commissioner and get 4 years extra time. So the total time theoretically will be extended up to 5 years. 6 months his time, 6 months approval from the joint commissioner or additional commissioner, and then 4 years if he goes to the commissioner. Okay. So that is on provisional assessment. And then interest liability. What will happen? Consequence of the provisional assessment क्या होगा? That if the tax liability increases, जैसे provisional assessment में 5% था और provisional assessment करने के बाद जो final order आया उसमें determine हो गया कि नहीं नहीं you have to pay 18%. आप गए थे उसके लिए ही, correct, to determine what is the rate. Now officer is determined that ठीक है आपके product 12% में भी नहीं आता. I told you to pay provisional. अभी फाइनल ऑर्डर में मैं डिटरमाइन कर रहा हूं that you have to pay 18%. So what will happen? Taxpayer may pay the differential tax क्योंकि इनिशियली प्रोविजन में कितना था 5% और फाइनल में 18% हो गया. तो फिर डिफरेंशियल 18 - 5 12% आपको पे करना है विथ इंटरेस्ट. ओके, व्हाट इज द इंटरेस्ट रेट? इंटरेस्ट रेट इज 18%. क्योंकि प्रोविजनली आपने सप्लाई कर दिया है एट 5%, क्यों बेनिफिट मिल गया आपको, लेकिन फाइनल जब डिसाइड हुआ तब 18% हो गया है. तो जो भी डिफरेंशियल है फ्रॉम द डेट व्हेन यू आर पेड द टैक्सेस ऑफ 5% टिल व्हेन यू आर पेइंग द डिफरेंशियल 12%, वो पीरियड से योर पीरियड तक आपको एक्स्ट्रा 18% इंटरेस्ट पे करना पड़ेगा फ्रॉम द फर्स्ट डे आफ्टर द ओरिजिनल ड्यू डेट टिल द एक्चुअल डेट ऑफ एक्चुअल पेमेंट. क्योंकि हम रिटर्न जब फाइल करते हैं तब टैक्स पे करते हैं. सो रिटर्न ड्यू डेट से लेके एक्चुअल पेमेंट तक इंटरेस्ट आपको पे करना पड़ेगा. इंटरेस्ट अप्लाइज इवन इफ डिफरेंशियल अमाउंट इज पेड बिफोर द फाइनल ऑर्डर इज पास्ड. ठीक है, इंटरेस्ट तो आपको पे करना ही पड़ेगा. सपोज समझ लीजिए फाइनल ऑर्डर आने में लेट हो गया है, उसके पहले आपने पे कर दिया है, फाइन, लेकिन उस पीरियड के लिए तो आपको इंटरेस्ट पे करना पड़ेगा. Fine. So when the liability is increasing, you have to pay the differential with interest. But अगर liability decrease हो गया, then you will get the refund. यहाँ पे you have to pay in case the final order is more than the provisional. But if the final order is less than the provisional, then you can seek you can get the refund of that excess tax what I've paid. इंटरेस्ट ऑन रिफंड इज पेएबल, यस, क्योंकि यहाँ पे आप मुझसे टैक्स मांग रहे हो और अगर देर इज एक्सेस आप मुझसे इंटरेस्ट ले रहे हो. सो रिवर्स ऑल्सो शुड बी इक्विटेबल, दैट व्हेन आई हैव पेड एक्सेस, आई हैव पेड टैक्सेस एट 18%, बट असेस करके फाइनली पता चला कि नहीं, प्रोविजनल असेसमेंट में आपने जो पे किया है फाइन, बट द रेट ऑफ टैक्स एंड द फाइनल ऑर्डर इज 12%. तो जो 12% - 18% है, 6% बैलेंस आपको रिफंड आना चाहिए, करेक्ट. So interest will be given to you if the refund is not paid within 60 days from the date of refund application. You have to apply for refund. If they give you within 16 days, fine, because government के पास भी थोड़ा staff का crunch है. So they have said that हमको 60 days time दीजिए, we will give you the refund from your application. If they pay it off, good. If they do not pay, then they'll be paying you interest also. And applicant applies for release after paying dues. जो भी security किया है, उसको भी आपको close करना है. And आप रिक्वेस्ट करते हो विद इन 7 वर्किंग डेज आपका सिक्योरिटी भी रिलीज हो जाएगा. ठीक है. सो व्हाट डिड वी अंडरस्टैंड टिल यर? वी अंडरस्टूड दैट we are going for a provisional assessment. Once we go for provisional assessment, he will issue a notice for additional documents. Then PO issues an order allowing a provisional payment. वो allow करेगा, ठीक है, आप provisionally pay कर दो. Sixty days from the date of receipt, he will pass a provisional order and he'll give you a consent. आपको बॉन्ड और बैंक गारंटी देना है. बैंक गारंटी विल बी इक्वल टू 25% ऑफ द बॉन्ड. So they take 60 days interest fee, but for taxpayer, we have to pay interest from day zero. Exactly right. ठीक है. I'll finish this and then come to your question, Sanjay. That PO decides that amount has to be paid. आपको बॉन्ड का 25% बैंक गारंटी देना पड़ेगा. Then बॉन्ड ले लिया है, अब फाइनल असेसमेंट करना है. फाइनल असेसमेंट करके टैक्स कब तक करना पड़ेगा? विद इन 6 months फ्रॉम द कम्युनिकेशन ऑफ द प्रोविजनल ऑर्डर. सो जब मैं अप्लाई करता हूं उसके 90 डेज में प्रोविजनल ऑर्डर पास करना है. फ्रॉम देयर 6 months. अगर एक्सटेंशन चाहिए देन गो टू द जॉइंट कमिश्नर और एडिशनल कमिश्नर फॉर एडिशनल 6 months. और भी टाइम चाहिए, गो टू द कमिश्नर फॉर 4 साल का टाइम मिल जाएगा. देन if my liability is more, I have to pay the differential with interest. If it is less, they have to pay me. Very one valid point what Sanjay has told is currently the rate is 18%. The rate भी ज्यादा है, refund आता है तो rate भी कम होता है. And the rate what I have to pay is 18% from the original date. But when they have to give me the refund, it is 60 days from the date of refund application. From then it will start. Correct. So there's a discretion here because officer tax डिपार्टमेंट से कुछ रेवेन्यू निकालना है. सो when they know that they will need some time, that the law has envisaged that when they have to give refund after 60 days, but when we have to pay, it will start from day zero itself. ठीक है. So that is on provisional assessment. Let's take one example to understand this. ABC Supplies Limited supplies medical equipments. Because medical equipments थोड़े complicated होते हैं तो उनको पता नहीं क्या रेट है. They're not sure if it is 18% or 20%. So what is the solution? They will supply everything at 28%. Or can they supply at 18%? बाद में जो होगा देखा जाएगा. No. A prudent taxpayer needs some clarity, needs some certainty. So he will say, okay, bhai, I will go for provisional assessment. He applies for provisional assessment. The company applies for provisional assessment and a bond is executed and tax is provisionally paid at 18%. कि मैंने apply किया है. Once I've applied, the officer has said, pay a tax at provisional 18%. If it is higher, then I will see. So you execute a bond saying that today you're paying at 18%. For the differential of 10%, you will pay if I determine it. So he will take a bond and also a bank guarantee. Okay. Now he's paid it. A final assessment आया कि no, you have to pay at 28%. अरे बाप रे. I thought it will be okay that it will have to pay at 18%. But the officer has concluded that it is not 18%, it is 28%. So क्या होगा? The outcome will be that ABC will pay the differential of 10% plus the interest from the original due date of supply. Fine. बस इतना ही है provisional assessment. So section 60 told us about the provisional assessment. Now, Various assessments. First is self-assessment, then provisional assessment. Now you're filing your returns, but आपका रिटर्न स्क्रूटनी कर सकता है ऑफिसर. यस, ऑफिसर स्क्रूटनी कर सकता है. सेक्शन 61 इज ऑन द स्क्रूटनी ऑफ रिटर्न्स. whenever I file my returns, he can verify the correctness of the returns based on the information available. What is the process for this? Returns can be selected for scrutiny, and if found, a notice is issued to the taxpayer quantifying the tax, saying that I have scrutinized your returns. Now, the officer will issue a notice to the taxpayer quantifying the tax and interest, saying that नहीं नहीं आपके returns में आपने disclose किया है, but I have other documents which corroborate that. जैसे income tax में returns में मैंने देखा कि आपका turnover ज्यादा है लेकिन इसमें आपने कम दिखाया है. You have paid less than what you have disclosed in your income tax return, pay the differential liability. So the notice will tell that this is your tax payable and the interest. Will you just pay it off? No. You will also have reasons. You will also have explanation why you filed your returns less. So taxpayer will give the reply or explain within 30 days. 30 days का time limit रहता है. Generally, be careful. The officer says 7 days time limit. You should not reply because law itself says that you should be giving a 30 days time limit. So you have to give you can give the reply 7 days, or if you do not have time, you can give within 30 days. So the statutory time limit is scrutiny of returns का कुछ आया notice, you can reply within 30 days, and it can be extendable if you talk to the officer. Okay. Then what happens if you give the response? If the response is accepted, the taxpayer accepts the discrepancies and pays the dues, saying that नहीं नहीं मेरे में तो गलत था. While scrutinizing your returns, your scrutiny is correct. I have to pay more tax, but I paid less. So you'll accept it. Okay. Then you will pay the differential and matter is closed. Second scenario is you will give a explanation and saying that no, my income tax return is high because I have some other exempted turnover also, or turnover of other heads other than business. That's why my turnover is higher. And if the officer is satisfied, okay, first is you will accept and pay. Second is you'll furnish an explanation, and PO, if he is satisfied, then also no action. Third situation is if no satisfying explanation is given. You are given the explanation, but he's not satisfied, or you have not given him an explanation also. Then the proper officer will proceed to audit, special audit, inspection, search, or determine the tax. So from this section 61, see, it is so very powerful, this section 61, when they scrutinize the returns and they find that, okay, it is not correct, they will proceed for audit. Audit under section 65, special audit under section 66, inspection or search under 67 में आ सकते हैं, या फिर determine the tax under 73, 74 or 74A. So see the route. You have filed your returns, self-assess हो गया section 59. Then scrutiny of returns 61 में officer ने कर दिया, satisfied हो गया, fine. If not satisfied, then they will go to section 65 or 66 or 67 or 73 or 74. So various routes are available under this section. Okay. Next is best judgment assessment. 61 हो गया for scrutiny of the returns. Now best judgment होगा for non-filers and late filers or unregistered person. That is 62 and 63. Both are doing a best judgment assessment. Because we are under best judgment assessment, इसमें 62 और 63 है. 62 is for a non-filer. आप registered हो लेकिन आपने file नहीं किया. Who is the target here? The registered person who fails to file the returns. Either the return under section 39 or section 45 आपने return file नहीं किया है. What is the prerequisite? A notice has to be issued and requiring that you file your returns. 61 is when you file the return, then differences is being questioned. But here, the taxable person is not filed the returns at all. So a notice will be issued requiring you to file your returns within 50 days. If still it is not filed, then the proper officer assesses the liability to the best of judgment using variable available materials. जैसे GSTR 1 ई-वे बिल्स आपने सबमिट किया है, उस बेसिस पे ऑफिसर बेस्ट जजमेंट करेगा. So under income tax also we have best judgment. Here also we have a best judgment concept that based on the data what I have filed, the officer will determine the tax liability. Again, who? The PO, the proper officer for this section, will do the best judgment. What is the time limit? Within 5 years from the due date of annual return of that financial year. जैसे 24-25 का due date we know is what? What is the due date of annual return for 24-25? Correct. 31st December 2025. So within the 31st December, I have to file the returns. Now the officer, if I do not file the returns, he can do the assessment within 5 years from the due date of my annual return. Okay. If I have not filed the returns, he will wait till I file the returns. If I have not filed it, then he can do a best judgment or under the section 62 saying that you have not filed your returns, your liability I will determine within 5 years from the due date. So 24-25 I have not filed any return. Due date of annual return is 31st December 25. So 5 years from that, that is 31st December 2030. Till then, he can do a assessment under this and levy the tax on me. Okay. Withdrawal of the assessment order. If the defaulter saying that he's got a notice, because isko to notice mein dena padega first, then he will have to determine the order. So he will give a notice, and based on the notice, if you're furnishing the valid return within 60 days, आपका ट्रांजैक्शन जीरो है लेकिन आपने फाइल नहीं किया, देन ऑल्सो ही विल डू अ बेस्ट जजमेंट. एंड विद इन 60 days अगर आप रिटर्न फाइल कर देते हो, देन द बेस्ट जजमेंट ऑर्डर इज डीम्ड विड्रॉन. आपको अलग से लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है, आपने रिटर्न सही फाइल कर दिया है, ठीक है, देन योर बेस्ट जजमेंट इज डीम्ड विथड्रॉन क्योंकि आपने पे कर दिया है. Then interest will remain, that is interest under section 50 and late filing must still be paid. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने रिटर्न फाइल नहीं किया, आप लेट फाइल कर रहे हो बेस्ड ऑन 62, आपको लेट फाइलिंग फीस पे एस्केप मिल जाएगा, नहीं. Interest and late filing fees has to be paid. He can file with further 60 days by paying additional late fees of rupees 100 per day. So once you get an order, you have to pay it within 60 days. बट अगर आप 60 days में भी पे नहीं करते हो, यू विल गेट एडिशनल 60 days बाय पेइंग एडिशनल लेट फीस ऑफ 100 रुपीज पर डे. तो नॉर्मल लेट फीस है वो तो लगेगा ही, बट एडिशनली 100 रुपीज पे के भी आप पे कर सकते हो. अंडर सेक्शन 62 यू आर गेटिंग अ टाइम लिमिट ऑफ 60 + 60 120 days. Okay, so what does 62 say? If you are not filing your return, the officer will call for notice saying that you have not filed your returns within 5 years from the date of annual return. That is the outer time limit which he can invoke under section 62. And he will tell you have not filed your returns. I will do the best judgment assessment, pay the taxes. If he gives you that notice, you have filed your return within 60 days, drop. Agar nahi, to then he will pass a best judgment assessment order under this section. So this is 62, assessment of not filers. Then assessment of unregistered person who is not registered. You supposed to register, non-filer ने तो एटलीस्ट रजिस्ट्रेशन किया, फाइल नहीं किया अंडर 62. 63 में अ पर्सन इसका लायबिलिटी ज्यादा ही है लेकिन उसने रजिस्टर ही नहीं किया. अ पर्सन, taxable person who fails to obtain registration, then person or a person whose registration was cancelled but was liable to pay tax. नाउ अनरजिस्टर्ड पर्सन दो कैटेगरी के हो सकते हैं कि आप तो इनिशियल से ही रजिस्टर्ड नहीं हो, सेकेंड इज आप रजिस्टर्ड हो लेकिन आपका रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल हो गया, इवन देन यू आर अनरजिस्टर्ड क्योंकि आपने रजिस्ट्रेशन लेके कैंसिल कर दिया है, आज तो आप अनरजिस्टर्ड हो. So for these two category of people, section 63 says that you will issue a notice saying that what is the grounds of your assessment कि हमको इतना मटेरियल मिला है, you have to pay taxes on these transactions. And they will allow you 15 days time for reply, and they'll give you an opportunity of being heard. Again, your order has to be passed within 5 years from the due date of annual return. If they are getting satisfied, then it's fine. If they are not satisfied, then they will do the best judgment again over here and issue a notice under 73, 74 or 74A. ठीक है. 61, scrutiny of returns. 62, assessment of non-filers. 63, assessment of unregistered person. 62, 63 is almost same. 62 is for a non-filing of return. 63 is for an unregistered person. Fine. Next, it is a summary assessment. Okay. Next is summary assessment under section 64, which says that what is the summary assessment procedure? So can a taxpayer whose registration is cancelled offer the tax payable himself? If yes, how can he do so? Because he cannot access the portal. Yes. Sir, a person whose registration is cancelled, no, his portal will be active. His portal will not get inactive, firstly. His portal will still be active and he can pay the taxes. Saying that after cancellation, I've realized something, I have to pay the taxes. You can pay the taxes to the government, no problem. Your return filing will be blocked, but your uh, payment is still open. You can pay it. Even if it is blocked, you lost something, you can request the officer saying, this is my GST number, give me the login, I want to pay the taxes. Happily, they will open it because they are getting the extra taxes, they will open it. If you want refund, then they will not give you because they will not give you money so easily. But if you want to pay some taxes, definitely you can pay it through the portal. Now, summary assessment under section 64. This is a protective assessment to secure revenue interest. Now, when will this happen? When the evidence of tax liability exists, that there is a liability which you have to pay. If such surety is there, then PO believes that delay in normal assessment will adversely affect. अगर मैं normal assessment में जाऊंगा, I have to get into the procedure, I have to give you a notice, give you 30 days time limit, determine your DAX and things like that. So this is a protective assessment. Summary assessment also is called as protective assessment. जब उतना टाइम नहीं है मुझे और मुझे आज ही टैक्स कलेक्ट करना है, then he will require previous permission of the additional and joint commissioner, and then he will say that no, this person is not paying taxes, so we have to do a summary assessment or a protective assessment. He will get a approval from the additional commissioner or joint commissioner, and if the liable person is unascertainable for goods in transit or warehouse, the person in charge of the goods is deemed to be the taxable person. Because मैंने तो सोचा था कि वो टैक्स पे कर लेगा, लेकिन वो मिल ही नहीं रहा है, then the person that is a warehouse holder और अगर goods in transit में transporter, that person will be treated as the taxable person, क्योंकि जो actual taxable person वो सामने नहीं आ रहा है. So then goods in transit या warehouse में जो भी है warehouse owner या फिर the transportation owner, उसके ऊपर ही हम टैक्स लगा देंगे. The taxable person can apply for withdrawal within 30 days of the order. कि हम उसके ऊपर तो हमने बेस्ट जजमेंट या समरी असेसमेंट कर दिया है. Now the actual taxable person can come and he will say, no, I will give you all the records. Don't do a summary assessment. I will not run away anywhere. Within 30 days, if he gives, then I can withdraw the summary assessment. Summary assessment किसके लिए है? For cases where of the taxpayer is not cooperative, वो ठीक से नहीं दे रहा है details, then this summary assessment has happened. Now, once you have given an order, अब उसको पता है कि आप उसके बैंक के भी छापा डाल देंगे. So then he will come up saying that no, please withdraw this. The tax layer in summary assessment is too high. My tax is very less. So in that situation, they can come for summary assessment. Okay. Suo moto, that is proper officer, that is the additional or joint commissioner, can withdraw it on their own account also. Either when the summary assessment है कि उनके पास एविडेंस आ गया है कि कुछ टैक्स पेबल नहीं है, देन दे देमसेल्फ कैन सो मोटो ऑन देयर ओन अकाउंट विदड्रॉ इट, या फिर एप्लीकेशन आने पे विदड्रॉ कर सकते हैं। विदड्रॉल के बाद क्या होगा, बस खत्म हो जाएगा? नहीं, बिकॉज द टैक्स पेयर इज नाउ कोऑपरेटिव, आई विल डिटरमाइन द टैक्स अंडर नॉर्मल रूल सेक्शन अंडर 73, 74 और 74A। नॉर्मली मुझे 73, 74 और 74A में ही जाना पड़ता है, बट मुझे थ्रेट करना पड़ता है टैक्स पेयर को कि अगर तुम पे नहीं करोगे तो फिर मैं तुम्हारा लायबिलिटी डिसाइड करूंगा विच विल बी हायर। सो इन दैट सिचुएशन अगर टैक्स पेयर उठ के आ जाता है, देन आई विल गो अंडर दैट रूट एंड विदड्रॉ द समरी असेसमेंट। So summary assessment is important. Yes, it's a protective assessment for the tax officers, saying that जब टैक्स पेयर कोऑपरेटिव नहीं है, भाग जाएगा, इन दैट केस आई विल डू अ समरी असेसमेंट। समरी असेसमेंट मतलब क्विक असेसमेंट, जो भी उसके पास एविडेंस है वो कुछ पूछेगा नहीं टैक्स पेयर से, फटाफट जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन है वो लेके वो असेसमेंट करेगा, दैट इज अ समरी असेसमेंट। क्लियर? दैट इज वेरी सिंपल प्रोविजन बट वेरी पावरफुल। टैक्स पेयर्स के ऊपर तो बहुत काफी चला जाता है। सो दिस इज अ समरी असेसमेंट। नेक्स्ट इज ऑडिट। सो असेसमेंट 59 से लेके 64 में असेसमेंट खत्म हो गया है। नाउ we'll discuss on audit. Section 65 says that it's a audit by tax authorities. We will read this, then we will understand this. Commissioner or the authorized officer. Again, commissioner तो audit नहीं करेगा, तो commissioner will authorize some audit officers and he will authorize some audit officers within the department. This is audit by the tax authorities itself. He can do an audit for one financial year or part of the year or multiple years thereof. तो एक पीरियड का ऑडिट कर सकता है, एक साल का, तो फिर काफी सारे सालों का कर सकता है। वेयर ही कैन डू दैट ऑडिट एट द रजिस्टर्ड प्लेस ऑफ बिजनेस ऑफ द टैक्स पेयर और द डिपार्टमेंट ऑफिस। वो एसएससी टैक्स पेयर के ऑफिस में भी जाके, फैक्ट्री में जाके भी ऑडिट कर सकता है, या फिर उसको डिपार्टमेंट में बुला सकता है। ठीक है। नोटिस विल बी मिनिमम 15 डेज वर्किंग डेज प्रायर नोटिस इज रिक्वायर्ड। ठीक है, 15 दिन पहले नोटिस देना पड़ेगा कि मैं ऑडिट करूंगा आके। ऐसा नहीं कि आज आ रहा हूं मैं, मुझे आज ही दो डॉक्यूमेंट्स, नहीं, ही हैज टू गिव इंटीमेशन, एटलीस्ट 15 दिन का टाइम लिमिट देना चाहिए, दैट विद इन 15 डेज, आफ्टर 15 डेज, आफ्टर 20 डेज, आफ्टर 30 डेज, मिनिमम 15 डेज गैप रख के वो ऑडिट करेगा। पहले नोटिस देगा, फिर ऑडिट पे आएगा। सर तब तक कुछ कर देगा, क्या कर सकता है? द ऑडिट इज नॉट लाइक, अगर ऑफिसर को डर है कि क्लाइंट कुछ कर देगा, द टैक्स पेयर कुछ कर देगा, तो फिर उसे इंस्पेक्शन करना चाहिए। बट अगर नॉर्मल है, उसके सिर्फ ऑडिट करना है, बिकॉज ऑडिट में लिए उसके कुछ एविडेंस नहीं होता है। अनलाइक असेसमेंट या दूसरे प्रोविजंस के लिए उसको एविडेंस चाहिए, ऑडिट के लिए ही डज नॉट नीड एनी प्रायर इंफॉर्मेशन। बस उसके ट्रांजैक्शन ज्यादा है ये देख के भी ऑडिट आ सकता है विथ ऑथराइजेशन। ऐसा नहीं कि सभी का जाएगा ना। सो ही विल गेट ऑथराइजेशन फ्रॉम हिज हायर अप, एज वी हैव डिस्कस्ड इनिशियली इन डिटेल, सो आई विल नॉट रिपीट दैट। सो ऑडिट जो है बेस्ड ऑन इंफॉर्मेशन, he will do a audit, he will call for information, check the information and come with the audit report. Okay, so where were we? We are saying that minimum 15 working days dena padega, not a surprise visit. And commencement, the date records are made available are the date of actual institution at the business place of premises, whichever is earlier. So when can he say that commencement has happened? When the date, the records are all available, or the date of actual institution, that is the date of commencement of audit. When should he complete it? From this commencement date within 3 months. ऐसा नहीं है कि ऑडिटर को काफी टाइम मिलेगा, 6 months, 5 years, ऐसा नहीं है। ऑडिटर को काफी कम टाइम मिलेगा, विद इन 3 months फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ कमेंसमेंट ऑफ द ऑडिट ही शुड कंक्लूड इट। ओके, नहीं मेरे को हुआ नहीं, बहुत सारा काम था, ठीक है एक्सटेंशन ले लो, मैक्सिमम 6 months बाय कमिश्नर। ठीक है, उससे ज्यादा आपको मिलेगा नहीं। उसके बाद अगर आप फिर भी आपने ऑडिट कंप्लीट नहीं किया, देन यू कांट डू एनीथिंग। ओके, सो विद इन 3 months and extendable up to 6 months by the commissioner, you should complete your audit. फाइनली इसका आउटकम क्या होगा ऑडिट का? ऑडिट में क्या करेंगे ये लोग? ऑडिट में करेंगे कि फाइनल डिस्क्रिपेंसीज विल बी इन्फॉर्म्ड सेइंग दैट आप हमने आपका ऑडिट किया, ये डिस्क्रिपेंसी फाइंड किया, आप इसका टैक्स पे कर दो। तो ऑफिसर का फाइनल रिपोर्ट आएगा, देन अ रिप्लाई इज कंसिडर्ड एंड देन फाइनल ऑब्जर्वेशन इज इन्फॉर्म विद इन 30 days ऑफ कंक्लूजन। फर्स्ट इनिशियल ये क्या देगा? फाइंडिंग्स देगा। ओके, फाइंडिंग्स का रिप्लाई मिलेगा। रिप्लाई मिलने के बाद फाइनल ऑब्जर्वेशन अपलोड होगा विद इन 30 days ऑफ द कंक्लूजन। सो अंडरस्टैंड द प्रोसेस हियर दैट कमिश्नर के ऑथराइजेशन पे ही आएगा। फर्स्टली कमिश्नर ऑथराइज कर रहा है तब आप ऑडिट करोगे, वरना ऑडिट नहीं कर सकते हो। You cannot randomly go and audit somebody. You have to get a authorization. Authorization has to be coming from the commissioner or the authorized officer. You can do audit of 1 year or multiple years or part period, either at your office or at the taxpayer's office. Minimum 15 working days notice you give, then complete your audit from within 3 months from the date of commencement. Date of commencement will be when all the information are available, or if you're going to the taxpayer's premises from that day, 3 months. And it can get extended by additional 3 months by commissioner's approval. Outcome will be findings are informed and the explanation will be given by the taxpayer. Once the explanation is considered, some points will be dropped or some points will continue. Then a final observation is given. Final observation maybe agar tax liability, then what will happen? Then they will go to demand the tax under section 73, 74 or 74A. Okay, so that is audit by tax authorities under section 65. But the tax authorities feel that no, they are not experts. They need an expert to do something. Then they will, when can this happen? At any stage of scrutiny, inquiry, or investigation. Okay. And in the opinion of assistant commissioner, when the value is not declared correctly and credit availed is not within the normal limits, in this situation, they will get the approval for special audit. Who will do this? Scrutiny, inquiry, or investigation. The officer itself will do it, right? And they are feeling that no, we are not having comfort. We need to get this done by an expert. Who is that expert? A chartered accountant or a cost accountant. Okay. In that, they will appoint a chartered accountant or cost accountant and tell him to do this special audit. When the value is not correctly declared or credit availed is not within the normal limits. क्योंकि normal होता तो they would have done normal department audit under section 65, but they're saying that the transaction is not within the normal limits. Special attention chahiye, they need a specialist. Then trial approval of the commissioner is required and they will get the account audited by a chartered accountant or a cost accountant who is nominated by the commissioner itself. So इसका स्पेशल ऑडिट का फीस भी क्या गवर्नमेंट भरेगी? नहीं, स्पेशल ऑडिट वो कराएंगे लेकिन फीस टैक्स पेयर को पे करना पड़ेगा। दिस इज अप्लीकेबल इवन इफ अकाउंट्स आर ऑलरेडी ऑडिटेड अंडर अदर लॉस। नहीं, मेरा तो स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट हो गया, आप स्पेशल ऑडिट नहीं कर सकते हो। नहीं, statutory audit is there under the Companies Act, but special audit is there under this law. I have to get this audit. You cannot get a escape mechanism कि आपका tax audit हो गया, statutory audit हो गया, no escape. इसके अंदर जो audit करना है वो आपको करना ही पड़ेगा। What are the special audit logistics? Submit report. Report will be submitted within 90 days. Further 90 days is allowed. Okay. That is normal 90 days, then additional 90 days is allowed. Then remuneration of the CA or CWA is paid by the commissioner. Department bears the cost. Okay, sorry. I thought the taxpayer has to pay. No, for special audit, I did not tell you to audit. The officer, you yourself have determined it. So the commissioner itself will bear the cost. If the tax again here is short paid या कुछ भी इसका नतीजा निकलता है, then this will become a good base to do the adjudication under 73, 74 or 74A. ठीक है? So, two types of audit, again recapitulating: audit by the tax authorities under section 65, They are feeling no, they do not have the wherewithal, they do not have the expertise. Commissioner say approval leke, they can do a special audit under section 66. Special audit is not done by the officer, it is done by a chartered accountant or a cost accountant who is nominated by the commissioner, and he will give a report. Special audit के लिए time क्या है? You get a time limit of 90 days. If you're a chartered accountant appointed by the commissioner, how much time limit you'll get? You'll get time limit of 90 days. You can also apply for extension saying that no, data is not sufficient, I'm not having sufficient time. You can get extension of additional 90 days. Remuneration is paid by the commissioner. The impact of the audit or special audit is it will result in a demand. Demand is raised in section 73, 74 or 74A. So what is the comparison between 65 and 66? Who conducts it? 65 by a tax officer and 66 is a nominated CA or CWA. Trigger is general order based on simple risk factors, but special audit, if it is complex and revenue interest is involved. Who pays? Department itself pays for normal audit. That is salary is what they give. But special audit, commissioner pays the fees for it. What is the time limit? 3 months plus 6 months, which is extendable. But in special orders, 90 days plus 90 days extension. EXT is extension. Notice 15 working days. It is in case of special audit, no notice is issued if the direction is issued by the assistant commissioner. Okay, so this is the difference between audit and special audit. Now, assessment, various types of assessment starts from 59, self-assessment, section 60, provisional assessment, when I'm unable to determine the value or rate. Then I will go for provisional assessment. Within when the provisional assessment can be done, normally 6 months. Approval from assistant commissioner take additional 6 months, and approval from the commissioner you will get extra 4 years. Non-filers, 61 is for, so what is 61? 60 is mentioned here, provisional. Any idea what is 61? Scrutiny of returns. Scrutiny of returns is when you file your returns, some discrepancy is there, then scrutiny of returns is done under 61. Then assessment, when we say, that's only a scrutiny, that's why it's not mentioned here. But assessment happens under 62 or 63. 62 happens for a non-filer, 63 happens for a unregistered person. 62 is a filer, is a registered person, but he's not filed the information. 63 is for a person who is not registered under this law at all. Okay, 62 is for non-filer, 63 is for an unregistered person. Okay, difference between 62 is registered, not filed. 63 is he's not registered at all, and 64 is summary assessment. This is a protective assessment. For 62 and 63, the time limit is 5 years itself. For summary assessment, immediately there's no time limit as such because you have to do it immediately. That's the objective of summary assessment. Clear? Now take this calculation. How do you calculate the interest for the this thing what we had discussed on provisional assessment? Provisional assessment order is issued and goods are supplied and tax is paid provisionally. Now final assessment order has come on the 21st of March. Provisional assessment order has come on 12th January and goods you have supplied on 25th January, wherein some provisionally you have paid the tax. Now final assessment order has happened and tax liability is increased to 1,80,000 rupees. And now you have to pay the differential tax. Correct? Because on final assessment, it is decided that you have to pay additional tax. Now, differential tax is paid on April 9th. So you tell me what is the interest you will pay on it. Calculate the interest on this. Come on, this is a exercise. After this, we'll take a break before getting into the next topic. Let us conclude this with a good calculation here. Come on, can you calculate this? 4,970. Very good, Sanjay. Ayush, can you calculate? Okay. The due date of January return is February. Interest is payable from February 21st to the actual payment, that is 21st to April 9th. So, how many days of delay? February 8 days, March 31 days, April 9 days, so total 48 days. Correct? So, I have to calculate the interest for 48 days, Baba. If I calculate interest for 40 days, how will you calculate? Okay, now calculate interest for 45 days and tell me the amount. To get from January 25th. No. So that's the reason. What is the due date? The due date for January is February. From the due date only, you have to calculate. Okay. So if you calculate interest for 48 days, how it will appear is like this: 1,80,000 into 18% into 48 divided by 365, which is 4,261. And whenever it is rounding, no, Ayush, more, if there is some thing like you have to pay to the government, go to the higher one itself. Okay. So that is a very simple topic, right? Audit and assessment. Assessment कर दिया, फिर audit. Audit with two types, 65 and 66. 65 normal audit, 66 is a special audit. Okay. So what we'll do is it's roughly 8:40. We'll take a quick break of 10 minutes and then come to the next chapter. So we'll catch you back again at 8:50. Please come back. Very interesting topic. 8:50 to around 9:50 we will conclude the class. inspection, search, and seizure. In audit and assessment, what we discussed before the break, we had said that audit, yeah, in inspection, search, and seizure, when we will discuss now, we were saying that when there is a urgency, when you can't wait for the audit or assessment because you have to follow the procedure, you know the time limit there starts from 3 months to 5 years. It is so many time limit. You have to give a notice. Like how when you do audit, also you can't give a surprise thing, right? By the time you give in 15 days, the books may be manipulated, right? So in such situation where you do not have trust on the taxpayer, you can do for inspection, search, and seizure. This is called chapa. Basically, the directly you go to the taxpayer's premises and you do this without giving him a prior intimation. But here, your evidence should be very strong. You cannot do it on a routine basis. You cannot do it जस्ट कि हर किसी के ऊपर डाल सकते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है. दिस हैज अ डिटेल प्रोविजन बिकॉज both has to get protected. A wrong payer, a wrong person who has not done anything wrong, or a person who's done right thing should not be wrongly caught as a in inspection and into a lot of trouble. So the protection is given to such right people. Wrong person who has done things wrongly, he definitely has to get caught. So there is a wide power to the officers also there. So we are clear on the topic of the previous chapter. Now in this chapter, what we will understand is why. Why is this provision there at all? These provisions act as a deterrent against tax evasion. That anybody who's doing evasion, he should, they're very smart people now who are doing, there are smart robbers, I would say now, who do things and they feel that they can play with the provisions of the law. The wrongdoers are not uneducated, they are much educated and they take advantage of the system and they take advantage of the law provision saying that no, I've done wrong or no, you have to decide only after doing audit, after doing adjudication, after doing assessment. So those things are there. So the present wrongdoers are very clever. They will read the law. They will read the law more than a chartered accountant because chartered accountant will only benefit it to a client, but a wrongdoer will benefit himself. So he's reading the law in much detail. Okay. So if they say those provisions, there has to be some deterrent saying that no, we still can do it. That's the reason these provisions of inspection, search, and seizure are there so that it should act as a deterrent against tax evasion, protecting the genuine taxpayers. That is also important. Genuine taxpayers should not get into this loop. And it should also safeguard the government's revenue. With these three objectives, this chapter of inspection, search, and seizure is there, that a wrongdoer should be afraid of the law. The power is given to the officers to immediately do the inspection and find out. And if the tax is more, then they can go for arrest also. There is a limit. Beyond the limit, if the tax is evaded and it is proved, they can be arrested. You can get the arrest warrant and arrest him also. The tax laws are so strong that they have powers to arrest him also. It should protect the genuine taxpayer also. ऐसा नहीं कि taxpayer जो genuine है उसके he also get into the grab of it. No, that is not the intention. He should be genuinely being protected and safeguard the government's interest. With this three objectives, you have this topic of inspection, search, and seizure. These are exceptional powers. As I had said, normal powers are audit and adjudication and assessment. Assessment, audit. Generally, it starts with audit, then the assessment. First, they will do the audit, find out what is the discrepancy, then go for various assessments. But when in exceptional cases, the taxpayer will run away, those situations are the amount involved is huge. Fly by night flyers. Lot of fake invoice cases we are reading in the news. For such people to catch them, these are the exceptional powers given as a last resort. What is the statutory framework? We'll read this. Participants, Sanjay, are you comfortable with Hindi in between? यस, ठीक है। तो इसमें क्या होगा कि जो छापा वगैरह लगता है उसका ही है, एंड जिसके ऊपर जनरली जो हम ऑडिट करेंगे, ऑडिट में एस्केप हो जाएंगे, वैसे केसेस में दीज थिंग्स आर डेल्ट इन, कि एक्सेप्शनल पावर है। तो एक्सेप्शनल पावर है तो फिर रूटीन में यूज नहीं कर सकते हैं। सो फॉर दिस स्पेशल गाइडलाइंस रहेगा, और स्पेशल गाइडलाइंस रहेगा, और कुछ मोर देन सस्पिशन रहना चाहिए। बस मुझे लगता है कि ये टैक्स पे नहीं कर रहा है, इसने एक बिल्डिंग खरीद ली है तो ये ब्लैक मनी से ही खरीदा रहेगा। दीज सस्पिशियस के बेसिस पे you cannot go for these powers. You have to have force because these are exceptional. So you should have stronger grounds so that when you go for inspection, you are in a better position. ऐसा नहीं कि all inspections should result in success. Some inspections can result in a failure also, but at least your scrutiny, your background work should happen in a proper manner. Okay, so it is given in chapter 14 of the CGST Act. This chapter starts from section 67 and ends to section 72. And of course, how we discussed key, there is a bridge section for IGST. So yes, section 20 of the IGST Act says that all the aspects of inspection, search and seizure, what is applicable to the CGST Act will apply to the IGST Act also. Key concept: inspection versus search, there's a difference. Seizure versus detention, there's a difference. Arrest safeguards are available and summons is there. These are the key concepts which we will learn here. Inspection. What is the power of inspection? A authority requires a written authorization from an officer of joint commissioner or above to do an inspection. सिंपल इंस्पेक्शन का मतलब क्या है? आप किसी के ऑफिस में जाओगे, वहां पे आप उसके बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स और प्रीमाइसेस इंस्पेक्ट करोगे, वो ही इंस्पेक्शन है। ओके, नाउ द स्कोप, अगर आपको, लेकिन आप ऐसे ही रैंडमली नहीं जा सकते इंस्पेक्शन के लिए, आपको ऑथराइजेशन चाहिए फ्रॉम अ हाईएस्ट ऑफिसर। जस्ट कमिश्नर के नीचे जो है जॉइंट कमिश्नर, फ्रॉम द जॉइंट कमिश्नर यू शुड हैव अ रिटर्न ऑथराइजेशन कि हाँ आप इसका इंस्पेक्शन कर सकते हो। रैंडमली आप चलते चलते किसी पर्सन का प्रीमाइसेस का आप इंस्पेक्शन नहीं कर सकते हो। जॉइंट कमिश्नर से अप्रूवल लेके, जॉइंट कमिश्नर कब अप्रूव देगा? व्हेन यू गिव हिम एविडेंस सेइंग दैट हाँ इस पर्सन ने कुछ रॉन्ग डूइंग दिया है, मुझे आप ऑथराइजेशन दीजिए, ओनली देन जॉइंट कमिश्नर विल गिव यू द पावर। करेक्ट? सो आपको इसीलिए हाईएस्ट ऑफिसर से लिखा है, क्योंकि नॉर्मल ऑफिसर रहेगा तो आप रूटीनली ले सकते हो, लेकिन जॉइंट कमिश्नर के पास जाना है, अप्रूवल लेना है, फर्स्ट उनका अपॉइंटमेंट मिलेगा नहीं आपको, अगर आप मिलेगा तो आपके एविडेंस क्लियर होने चाहिए, तभी आपको वो ऑथराइजेशन देंगे। ठीक है, एक्सेस, अगर उसने ऑथराइजेशन भी दे दिया, जॉइंट कमिश्नर साहब ने ऑथराइजेशन दिया है, then you can do inspection of what? You can do inspection of place of business of the taxable person, where his office is there, that you can do. Where whether he's registered that or no, that is not thing. They have not said place of registered office, saying place of business, whether it is registered, unregistered, everything. All the place of business is important. So there could be a question saying that should the inspection be done only in the place of registered premises? Answer will be no. It is the place of business, whether registered or unregistered, doesn't matter. The place of business, from there you can do the inspection. Then place of business of the transporter. You have very people are smart these days. The GST law has also outsmarted them. Key, you will not do a business, but you will tell that it is at the transporter's place, right? So they've covered that also. Place of business of the transporter or owner or operator or a warehouse or godown. If it is not that your place itself, wherever your goods are lying, transporter carries your goods and you tell the goods are there. It's not like any transporter's place they can do, where you are transporting and the goods are in transit. In that situation, they can do the inspection of the transporter. And if you are operating from a warehouse or godown where you are storing your goods and it is proved, you have a rent agreement, you have an agreement of warehousing, you have an agreement of godown, that will prove it that is your premises. ऐसा नहीं कि नॉर्मल किसी के गोडाउन में जा सकते हैं. The person whose inspection is carried out, if he has some goods there, then they can do the inspection of that place also. So inspection can happen as a inspection of your place of business and inspection of a transporter or owner or operator of a warehouse or godown. Now, what is the reason to believe? The trigger point for inspection is that if the officer has a reason to believe that the taxable person has suppressed the transaction, he's suppressed the stock, or he's claimed excess ITC, or he's contravened any provision to evade tax. Okay, so if the taxable person, if he has a reason to believe, what is reason to believe, हम detail में देखेंगे. But if the officer has a inspection to believe that the taxable person has suppressed the transaction, सेल है 1 करोड़ का, taxable turnover returns में दिखा है सिर्फ 1 लाख का, 1 करोड़ का उसके पास, ऑफिसर के पास रीजन टू बिलीव है कि हाँ इसने 1 करोड़ का किया है. इफ ही हैज स्ट्रॉन्ग रीजन टू बिलीव, देन देयर इज अ सप्रेशन ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन, या स्टॉक को सप्रेस कर रहा है, या ही इज क्लेमिंग एक्सेस आईटीसी. आईटीसी तो है इसका 5 लाख रुपए, इसने सीधा 50 करोड़ क्लेम कर लिया है, or is contravened any provisions of the law to evade tax. In that situation, he can come for inspection. And transporter warehouse who has kept the goods regarding which tax has escaped the assessment or accounts likely to cause evasion, so फिर he can go to transporters or warehouse space also. Okay, where goods regarding the which tax has escaped, tax उसने सेल्फ असेसमेंट भी नहीं किया और ऑफिसर के असेसमेंट से भी एस्केप हो गया है, और अकाउंट्स which is likely to escape evasion, then they can do inspection of the transporter's premises also. ठीक है, so inspection is very simple, that when the officer has reason to believe, he can get an authorization from the joint commissioner and he can come for inspection. Inspection means he can only do an inspection, he cannot take off the goods. Now इसको authorization दिया है only for inspection, so he will come and do the inspection. But when can he come for inspection? When he has a reason to believe. What is the meaning of reason to believe? Very important term, because the provision of 67 says that you cannot just do any inspection. If you have a reason to believe that tax has been evaded or tax has been withheld, transactions are hidden, stocks has been hidden, only then you can do a inspection. Now, what is this reason to believe? It is not mere suspicion. Like I had said in the example, बस इसका तो बहुत सारे खर्चे कर रहा है ये, तो इसका मतलब इसने कुछ ना कुछ घपला किया है. ऐसे जो सीआईडी का सीरियल आता था, इसमें कुछ ना कुछ तो शक है, राइट? नॉट इतना ड्रामेटिकल हो सकता है कि आप किसी के ऊपर शक करके नहीं जा सकते हो. इट इज अ सस्पिशन व्हाट दैट सीआईडी इज डूइंग, कि हाँ इसका कुछ करा होगा. जस्ट सस्पिशन के बेसिस पे नहीं जा सकता है. देयर हैज टू बी अ रीजन टू बिलीव, बट एब्सोल्यूट एविडेंस भी नहीं है, क्योंकि अगर एब्सोल्यूट एविडेंस ही आ गया है तो आप अरेस्ट ही कर लोगे, इंस्पेक्शन वगैरह के लोचे क्यों पढ़ोगे. सो व्हेन इट इज मोर देन सस्पिशन but less than proper evidence, absolute evidence, that is called as reason to believe. कि आपके पास पूरा एविडेंस तो नहीं है, लेकिन आपके पास सस्पिशन भी नहीं है, सस्पिशन के साथ कुछ ठोस खदोस है, ठोस आपके पास कुछ तो एविडेंस है, नॉट एब्सोल्यूट एविडेंस बट सम कोरोबरेटिव एविडेंस उसे बोलते हैं, कि सर्कमस्टेंसेस है और सम इंफॉर्मेशन है कि आपको रीजन टू बिलीव है कि इसने कुछ किया है. Then you can go for inspection. What is the objective standard? It must be based on relevant material. तो कुछ तो material होना चाहिए, not in air, not कि कोई खबरी है, खबरी ने कुछ बोल दिया आप जाओगे. खबरी की बात से जनरली शुरू होता है, लेकिन क्योंकि इतने सारे हैं, एक्चुअली तो ऑफिसर के पास भी थोड़े खबरी रहते हैं, तो खबरी के बात सुन के they will have to get a relevant material and circumstances that would lead a reasonable or honest person to conclude the same. ठीक है, ऑनेस्ट पर्सन मतलब जो नॉर्मल पर्सन है उसे बिलीव हो सकता है कि हाँ इसने कुछ किया है, तो वैसे रीजन टू बिलीव होने पर ही आप इंस्पेक्शन कर सकते हो. ठीक है. So it must be based on relevant material and circumstances, and which would lead a reasonable person or an honest person to conclude that there is a reason that he has evaded the tax. Mere suspicions के basis पे आप inspection नहीं कर सकते हो. The reference is Section 26 of the IPC Act, which defines it as having sufficient cause to believe. The reason to believe is defined under the IPC Act is there should be sufficient cause to believe. See, this technical languages, these terms which have been used is very, very heavy words, are very relevant words, saying that there has to be reason to believe. And IPC says that reason to believe means sufficient cause to believe. So these are the terms which you will also use in your exams. You cannot write these terms in your own words, right? Because these are the specific word which we have to use, and you have to use the specific section. So reason to believe means there is a sufficient cause to believe that yes, he has done something wrong, is withhold something, only then you can go for inspection. Reason to believe is similar to income tax provision. Yes, reasons to believe is used in income tax provision also. So whatever jurisdiction are there or whatever case laws you see under reason to believe under income tax laws, you can use that here also. Yes, whatever is the reason to believe under income tax law, that will be used here as well. Good, Sanjay. Very good reference. You are trying to correlate कि ये terms कहाँ पे है, कौन से act में I can use it. Yes, very good. You can use the terms under the Income Tax Act also. Okay. So what is the legal interpretation? It is not mere suspicion. It has to be absolute and just below absolute evidence. That is the gap wherein there is beyond suspicion but less than evidence. That is the place where reason to believe will fit in. Okay. It must be based on relevant material and circumstances, and which would lead a normal person, a reasonable person, to conclude the same. And the meaning is given as sufficient cause to believe under the IPC Act. Search. The inspection is such. So what will he do in the inspection? He'll just do the inspection and he will write a report. Inspection जो authorization है ऑफिसर को, वो सिर्फ इंस्पेक्ट कर सकता है, सर्च या सीज नहीं कर सकता है. सर्च या सीजर के लिए अलग ऑथराइजेशन चाहिए उसको. So these provisions are dealt very much by a lawyer in day in and day out, क्योंकि उनके पास काफी सारे केसेस ऐसे आते हैं. So imagine if you get the prophecy here or get the expertise here, you will read the law here and you will also read it practically when you, it will also help you to do legal cases. ठीक है. So inspection हो गया. Inspection के बाद सर्च करना है तो वो सर्च भी कर सकता है. सर्च का मीनिंग क्या है? इट इज नॉट डिफाइंड अंडर जीएसटी लॉ. Search, they have not defined that given power to search. So general meaning of search क्या है? They will come and search the premises. Inspection में सिर्फ inspect कर रहा है, search नहीं कर रहा है. Search में वो in detail search कर सकता है, where generally meaning examining a place or person to find any concealed evidence. अगर कुछ evidence concealed है, उसे ढूंढने के लिए वो जा रहा है, उसे है कहते हैं search. So inspection is just a first thing कि वो आके जगह देख रहा है, वो कुछ कंसील्ड चीज ढूंढ नहीं रहा है. So he's only coming for inspection of the premises. From that, he will find some suspicion and then he will get a authorization for search and do it. But practically officers क्या करते हैं कि इंस्पेक्शन के साथ ही सर्च कर लेते हैं, क्योंकि अगर एक बार इंस्पेक्शन के लिए आ गए तो फिर अगेन वो चौकन्ना हो जाते हैं टैक्स पेयर्स एंड दे विल गपला कर देंगे, जो चीज छिपानी हो छिपा देंगे. बट पावर ऐसे बोलता है कि अगर आप सर्च के लिए आते हो तो आप सर्च का ऑथराइजेशन लेके आ जाइए. ऑफिसर इंस्पेक्शन के लिए ऑफिस लेके आ रहे हो कि प्रीमाइसेस एग्जिस्टिंग है या नहीं है, उसको ढूंढने के लिए, तो देन यू विल गेट अ ऑथराइजेशन फॉर इंस्पेक्शन. इंस्पेक्शन इज डिफरेंट, सर्च इज डिफरेंट. ओके. So when you come for search, you will examine a place or a person to find the concealed evidence or goods. Hidden goods है, डॉक्यूमेंट्स जो है आपने सेल किए हैं, उसका पेन ड्राइव आप कहीं पे रख दे हो, टैली डेटा आप रख रहे हो, सब ये सब ढूंढने के लिए आप सर्च करोगे। एंड सर्च पे भी क्या करोगे, आप उसे लेके नहीं जा सकते, उसका ऑथराइजेशन सीजर में है। इंस्पेक्शन अलग है, सर्च अलग है, सीजर अलग है। सर्च में आप सिर्फ सर्च कर रहे हो। सीजर का अगर आपको पावर है तो फिर आप सीज कर सकते हो। सीज का मतलब क्या है? टेकिंग फिजिकल और कंस्ट्रक्टिव कस्टडी ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी कॉन्ट्री टू विशेस ऑफ द ओनर। ओनर के विश के अगेंस्ट आप ले रहे हो, क्यों? क्योंकि आपको एविडेंस गैदर करना है, राइट? उसको आप सीज करोगे, आपके पास ऑथराइजेशन आ गया सीज के लिए, आप अभी उसको सीज कर रहे हो। तो इंस्पेक्शन कर लिया, सर्च कर लिया, अभी आप सीजर पे उतर गए हो कि आप उसके बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स ले रहे हो, उसके मोबाइल ले रहे हो। कैन यू डू इट? यस, पावर है इसीलिए तो आप ले रहे हो। एंड यू कैन डू इट अगेंस्ट द विशेस ऑफ द ओनर? यस, यू कैन स्टिल डू इट बिकॉज यू हैव गॉदर्ड एविडेंस, यू हैव डन अ सर्च, यू हैव डन इंस्पेक्शन, बेस्ड ऑन दैट ओनली यू आर डूइंग अ सीजर। छापा जो बोलते हैं ये है करेक्ट छापा। तो छापा मार के आप गुड्स ले सकते हो, क्योंकि वो उसे बेचेगा और फिर टैक्स पे नहीं करेगा। लेकिन गुड्स इतने सारे हैं, आप उसे लेके क्या करोगे? देन यू आर डूइंग अ कंस्ट्रक्टिव सीजर, मतलब आपने उसको सीज कर दिया है लेकिन वहीं पे है। ऐसा नहीं कि सीज में फिजिकल सीजर हो जाता है जब आप पेन ड्राइव, लैपटॉप, ऑफिस टैक्स पेयर के उठा लेके जाते हो, दैट इज फिजिकल सीजर। सेकेंड इज कंस्ट्रक्टिव सीजर, जब बोलते हो आप इसके ऊपर सील डाल देते हो, रूम के ऊपर लॉक कर देते हो, बीरू को लॉक कर देते हो, जहां पे गुड्स रखा है वहां पे ईयर मार्क कर देते हो कि आप उसे छूना नहीं। दैट इज कॉल्ड एज कंस्ट्रक्टिव कस्टडी ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी, दैट इज ऑल्सो कॉल्ड एज कंस्ट्रक्टिव सीजर। तो आपने वहाँ उठाया नहीं है, वहां पे ड्यू टू फिजिकल कंस्ट्रेंट, लॉरी है, ट्रक है, उसके ऊपर आपने सीजर डाल दिया कि आप उसे मूव नहीं कर सकते हो। सो दिस इज कंस्ट्रक्टिव कस्टडी ऑफ फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टी, एंड दिस इज अगेंस्ट द विशेस ऑफ द ओनर, दैट यू कैनॉट डील विद इट, यू कैनॉट टच विद इट। That is called seizure. So जब you grab things, you take away the things, take the custody from the owner, that is called as seizure. Okay. Authorization is given by the joint commissioner or higher authority. So authorization is given by the joint commissioner or higher authority, which must have a reason to believe that the goods liable to confiscation or relevant documents are secreted in any place. तो ऑथराइजेशन लेना जरूरी है। बिना ऑथराइजेशन के आप जो भी काम करोगे, आप उसके ऊपर टैक्स नहीं कलेक्ट कर पाओगे, क्योंकि आपने अनऑथराइज सर्च किया है। तो आपको ऑथराइज सर्च ही करना पड़ेगा। कि काफी सारे केसेस हम लोग देखते हैं कि सर्च वगैरह जो भी है, बट ऑल्सो कोर्ट विल से नो, यू हैव नॉट डन अ प्रॉपर सर्च, रिटर्न बैक, एंड यू कैन नॉट कलेक्ट एनी टैक्सेस बिकॉज आपने अनऑथराइज सर्च किया है। यू हैव टू डू ऑथराइज सर्च when you must have a reason, you have to get authorization from a joint commissioner or higher authority. Joint commissioner के ऊपर commissioner है, you have to get authority from him, wherein you have reason to believe that the goods liable to confiscation or relevant documents are secreted in a place. Then you will get the permission कि आपको पता है कि suspicion है कि इनने कुछ किया है। Then you will get a authorization for search and seizure. What all you can seize? You can seize the goods, you can seize the documents, you can seize the books or things. मतलब सब कुछ आप सीज कर रहे हो। तो सीजिंग द गुड्स, जो फिजिकल गुड्स है, असेट भी सीज कर सकते हो आप, डॉक्यूमेंट सीज कर सकते हो, बुक्स सीज कर सकते हो, और एनी थिंग्स यू कैन सीज इट। सो दैट इज द पावर ऑफ द सीजर। पावर्स ऑफ ऑफिसर ड्यूरिंग सर्च, व्हाट कैन यू डू? सर्च पे आ गए हैं, अब टैक्स पेयर को कोऑपरेटिव होना चाहिए, but if he is not cooperative, can you break open the lock? Yes, you can break open. If access is denied, the officer can seal or break open doors, almirahs or boxes. ऐसा नहीं कि आते छकाश लात मारो दरवाजा खोलो, दया जैसे बोलते हैं दया दरवाजा खोलो, ऐसा नहीं है। You have to ask the taxpayer, please open it. If he opens it, well and good, you don't have to break it. If it doesn't cooperate, तो फिर you can break open the seal doors and almirahs and boxes. डिटेंशन इफ सीजर इज नॉट प्रैक्टिकल, दैट इज जैसे हेवी मशीनरी या बहुत सारे गुड्स है, द ऑफिसर कैन सर्व अ डिटेंशन ऑर्डर prohibiting the owner from dealing with the goods without permission. So you're blocking it. You're saying that I have detained it, I have not taken it, but it has been detained. You cannot remove it without the permission of the officer, and you can seal the premises. Premises can be sealed if the access is denied. Okay. So during search, you can do these three things. You can break open the things if the access is not given or access is denied itself, then you can firstly break open. Second is you can detain it, that you will not be permitted to open up the doors. You will not be permitted to move the goods. You will not be available to move the vehicles, etc. And third case is you can do a sealing of it, when you can put a seal against it saying you will not get the access to this specific sealed place. इंस्पेक्शन हो गया. इंस्पेक्शन के बाद सर्च एंड सीजर कर लिया है. तो फिर क्या है नेक्स्ट प्रोसीजर? Safeguards for the taxpayer is the person has a right to take copies or extract of the seized documents. ऐसा नहीं कि मैंने seize कर दिया है, I will determine the thing. Now you do not have any defense. You can take copies or extract of these seized documents unless it affects the investigation. कि आप documents लेके कुछ additional evidence बना दोगे, then you cannot take it. Otherwise, in normal situations, you can take the copies of the seized documents, and if no note now आप लेके you can gather evidence, because you should also have a right to defend your case, so you can take the copies of the seized documents. Now अगर goods है, now goods रख के क्या करेंगे, वो उसको तो सीज कर दिया है. मेनली माई द ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ डूइंग द सीजर इज आई हैव टू पे द टैक्सेस. दैट इज योर ऑब्जेक्टिव. What will you do with the goods? Either you will sell it at a lower rate, you give it to me, I will sell it at a proper rate. So they're saying that if no notice is issued within 6 months of the seizure, then the goods must be returned. तो 6 months तक ऑफिसर के पास रह सकता है. अगर उसके बाद भी वो रख रहे हैं, then you can tell them to return back the goods, because see, you have done an inspection, you have done a search, but and you have taken my goods also. Now you have not given me a show cause notice, because what is show cause notice? A notice which is given to do any adjudication under 73, 74, and 74A. A show cause notice is issued. Now you have retained the goods. You have not completed your search. You have not issued your show cause notice also. You may be busy, but that doesn't mean that my goods, you will hold it for a longer period. So they've given sufficient time. 6 months time बताया है. Within 6 months, if you give a show cause notice, fine. अगर 6 months के अंदर शो कॉज नोटिस है, तो फिर शो कॉज नोटिस चलेगा और गुड रिटर्न होगा ही होगा. लेकिन 6 महीने का टाइम में आपने शो कॉज नहीं दिया है, तो आप आपका शो कॉज नोटिस बाद में दीजिए, मेरा गुड्स मुझे रिलीज कर दीजिए. So they have to release the goods if the show cause notice is not issued within 6 months of seizure. Extension, proper officer will get an extension of another 6 months. वो अपने हायर अप से जाके 6 + 6 12 months तक रख सकता है, उसके ज्यादा नहीं रख सकता है. Right. This is for goods. लेकिन documents can be retained as long as required for inquiry or proceedings. जो भी inquiry proceedings करनी है, तब तक वो goods रख सकता है. Within 6 months plus 6 months goods के लिए है for returning the goods, but for documents, till the inquiry or proceeding is happening, they can keep it. There is no time limit for that. But generally, the officer will try to do it at the earliest, because ज्यादा रख के उसको ज्यादा टैक्स आएगा ऐसा नहीं है, right? So he also wants to get the tax from the taxpayer, so he will keep it till the inquiry or proceedings is concluded. So understood the difference between inspection, search, and seizure? So inspection means only coming for inspection. Once he finds anything wrong, then they will come for search and seizure. Okay, so first is inspection. Inspection के लिए also there has to be reason to believe. Without reason to believe, mere suspicion, they cannot come. Once inspection they've come, then they can come for search and seizure. Or without inspection, other evidence also they've got it. Directly also they can come for search and seizure. Hmm. Now, if they want to get the goods relieved, जैसे 6 + 6 12 months हो गया है, तब तक आप वेट नहीं कर सकते हो, आपके goods आपको बेचने हैं, you want to not waste the money on the goods what you have invested, then the taxpayer can apply for provisional release. How you can apply for provisional relief? Executing a bond and furnishing a bank guarantee. जैसे हमने देखा था वहां पे provisional assessment also there is a bond and bank guarantee. Here also there is a similar provision of bond and bank guarantee. Bank guarantee generally will be 25%, but the officer will decide what will be the amount of bank guarantee. Okay, so you can execute a bond and bank guarantee. इतना दे दिया है, इतना भरोसा दे दिया, then you can take your goods. Okay, and और पेमेंट ऑफ अप्लीकेबल टैक्स इंटरेस्ट एंड पेनल्टी इफ यू आर अग्रीइंग कि ठीक है बॉन्ड सिक्योरिटी नहीं है, if you want to pay the tax on that also, then also you can do it. So option is bond or bank guarantee if the officer agrees. If the officer doesn't agree, then pay your taxes and take the goods. Now, ठीक है आप रिलीज ऑफ गुड्स के लिए नहीं आ रहे हो, देन इन केस ऑफ एनी पेरिशेबल और हजार्डस गुड्स, द गवर्नमेंट अगर कि हजार्डस गुड्स है एंड द टैक्स पेयर हैज नॉट कम फॉरवर्ड टू टेक दिस गुड्स, उसको लगता है कि ठीक है ऐसे रहने दो, बट ऑफिसर अभी घबरे में है कि ये तो पेरिशेबल गुड्स है, ये खराब हो जाएंगे, ये हजार्डस गुड्स है, मैं यहाँ पे नहीं रख सकता हूँ, जैसे क्रैकर्स है या फिर इलेक्ट्रिकल आइटम्स है, दीज आर ऑल हजार्डस गुड्स, आई कैन नॉट कीप इट इन माई ऑफिस फॉर लॉन्ग ड्यूरेशन. Then the government will notify the goods that can be disposed of immediately by the proper officer. जैसे न्यूज़पेपर्स हैं, पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स है, रेड सैंडर्स, बैटरीज. In these cases, these are all called as perishable or hazardous goods. The government will notify these goods that can be disposed of immediately by the proper officer. Proper officer उसको auction वगैरह करके सेल कर सकता है. ओके, लेकिन ऑफिसर विल प्रिपेयर एन इन्वेंट्री बिफोर डिस्पोजल ऑफ. ऐसा नहीं कि सेल तो 1 करोड़ के, ऑफिसर ने बोल दिया नहीं सिर्फ 50 लाख था, वो नहीं होगा. ऑफिसर हैज टू मेंटेन इन्वेंट्री एंड देन ही हैज टू डिस्पोज ऑफ दीज गुड्स. ठीक है, सो ही शुड इन ओनली हर गुड्स को सेल नहीं कर सकता है, ही विल डिस्पोज ऑफ. डिस्पोजल मतलब सेल. He cannot dispose of just like that. He has to have a record of it. When the higher authorities or the taxpayer ask it कि मेरे गुड्स का वैल्यू तो इतना था, आपने कितने में बेचा है. एक जैसे सैंडर, रेड सैंडर है, उसका रेट ज्यादा है, आपने कैसे डिसाइड किया है. सो ही हैज टू हैव प्रॉपर एविडेंस. He should also have proper documents saying that he has applied for an auction. Auctioner में highest bidder था. All those documents he has to give to the taxpayer because he is. ऐसे नहीं कि if the taxpayer is done wrong, officer also can do it wrong. Officer has to do it correctly. That he should dispose it in a proper manner. जो भी value आता है, that he should hand it over to the taxpayer or reduce it from the tax what he is payable. क्योंकि ऐसा नहीं कि he is an agent of the taxpayer. He has to adjust it from the tax revenue which he has to collect it. Procedure for compliance, what CRPC section 100 says is that GST search must follow the code of similar procedure code, which means that जो भी हमने लेटेस्ट अजय देवगन की मूवी में देखा है, that करना ही पड़ेगा. That he must give a valid warrant. He should show a proper warrant that yes, I have got a person in charge को ठीक है warrant देना पड़ेगा. This is in case of a inspection. This is in case of this thing. Arrest. He must show to the person in charge that he's got a valid arrest warrant. It should be in presence of 2 witnesses from the locality is mandatory and must accompany if a residence is searched. So search warrant. This is not arrest warrant, sorry. This is a search warrant where he must show to the person in charge that he's got a search warrant. 2 independent witnesses should be present. It must accompany if the residence is searched, which means a lady officer must inspect. It should be there if a residence is being searched, because in residence, woman, lady may be there or men may be there, but any residence, if it is being searched, then the lady officer has to be there. If there's a personal search, that is, the officers and witness must offer themselves for personal search, saying that you can search us, then we will go in. Right? This is very well explained in nowadays in the latest movies that they are following this procedure is what they are depicting. That they can tell the taxpayer that you can search us, saying that if you are carrying anything, so that you are very clear that we are doing a proper search. Okay, so valid warrant has to be there, valid search warrant, and proper witness. Two witnesses should be there from the locality who are well known. Lady officer will accompany, and officers can themselves offer, should offer, must, it says must offer themselves for personal search before and after the operation. Before and after, because after the operation, during something search, they found something, they put it in their pocket. That also you can search. Now the documentation. Once a search is completed, the documentation is called as Panchnama. Okay, the जैसे Panchnama बोलते हैं, this is the Panchnama which says that, or it's also called as Mazahar, which are either called as a Panchnama or a Mazahar, which has a recording of the proceedings, which is prepared on the spot. Inspection होते ही आपको ये बनाना जरूरी है. The legal, the provisions of the CPC says that अगर आप किसी का inspection search seizure करते हो, then you have to prepare this. That's why the provisions of the CPC is imbibed in the GST law also. What you should mention in that Panchnama, you should mention all the list of the goods or documents what you are recovering. Then signature, it must be signed by the officer, by the witness, and the owner are in charge of the premises. सभी का कंसेंट लेना पड़ेगा. So you have to get it signed by the officer, the witness, and the owner in charge of the goods. A copy must be given into the person in charge after acknowledgement. A copy should be given to him also. Okay. So this is section 67 on inspection, search and seizure. कि क्या provisions करना है. After search and seizure, what happens कि first inspection के लिए आ गए हो आप, 67 में इंस्पेक्शन कर लिया है, फिर सर्च सीजर करके आप ये पंचनामा बना के ले जा सकते हो. देन द प्रोसीजर विल स्टार्ट कि आपको 73, 74, 74 ए में नोटिस करना है, या टैक्स पेयर बोलता है ठीक है इतना हो गया, आई विल पे द टैक्स नाउ. इफ पेज द टैक्स, वेल द ऑब्जेक्टिव इज जस्टिफाइड, बिकॉज ही विल गेट स्केयर्ड नाउ. क्यों? इंस्पेक्शन सर्च में अगर कुछ गुड्स मिल गए हैं या कुछ एविडेंस उनको मिल गए हैं विच वॉज नॉट अवेलेबल बिफोर, राइट, तो फिर वो डर के भी टैक्स पे कर देगा. या फिर प्रोसीजर इन बेसिस, इस बेसिस, इन द बेसिस ऑफ द इंस्पेक्शन सर्च एंड सीजर, जो डॉक्यूमेंट्स मिलते हैं उसके बेसिस पे शो कॉज नोटिस और ऑर्डर इश्यू कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, एक बार ऑर्डर हो गया तो देन दे कैन डू फॉर रिकवरी. सो सी, इवन अंडर इंस्पेक्शन सर्च एंड सीजर, गुड्स के ऊपर आपके पास कब्जा कर सकते हो, लेकिन टैक्स तो टैक्स पेयर को ही पे करना पड़ेगा. Then inspection of goods in movement. This what we saw earlier was inspection at the physical place. लेकिन जब आप goods move कर रहे हो from one place to another place, तब भी inspection करते हैं. Yes, inspection can be carried out of a conveyance, lorry, truck, जो भी है उसे कहते हैं conveyance. Inspection when the goods are moving, that time also you can do an inspection. When is it required? When you are carrying, when the when you're carrying a consignment of a value exceeding specified limit, and the person in charge of the conveyance has to produce prescribed documents. One of the documents the law incites is that e-way bill. So when you're moving any goods, you should have a e-way bill. Without e-way bill, can you move it? You cannot move it. So you should have a e-way bill document, and you should have the invoice and a device for verification. जैसे RFID should imbibe with your e-way bill, and the person in charge of the conveyance, that is the driver, should allow for inspection like e-way bill has been prescribed. So inspection during transit, the important thing is in the other inspection, 67 inspection, we said authorization is required. But in case of inspection of goods in transit, the goods are in movement. Agar you get the authorization, by then time the goods will reach off. That's why they are saying that for this inspection of goods in movement, MOV forms, which we call MOV1, MOV2, MOV10 तक जाता है. These forms can be done, inspection can be done without authorization of a joint commissioner. This section is a special section, exception to the previous section. Previous section we saw that inspection के लिए भी authorization from the joint commissioner is required. But in this case, in case of goods, inspection of goods in movement, authorization is not required. They can randomly catch the goods also, that when they have got some information, they will hold the goods in movement, verify it. If the documents are fine, they will let go. If the documents are not fine, then they will tell them to stay at the check post itself or stay at the local GST office. Okay, so this is inspection of goods in movement. Detail of this is discussed in chapter 10, but since we are dealing in inspection and 67, 68 together, I thought I should bring this also to your knowledge. Okay, so once inspection search has happened, next is arrest. What is the definition of arrest? Taking into custody under lawful command. Okay, the judicial interpretation of arrest says taking into custody under lawful command of a person. Okay, so there we discussed under 67 lawful custody of goods. Here it is lawful custody of a person itself. Authorization, the commissioner authorizes the arrest. There at least joint commissioner were there. Here it is the commissioner itself. The commissioner will authorize the arrest. Threshold is when the tax evasion exceed 2 crore rupees. ऐसे छोटे मोटे केस के लिए आप you cannot go for arrest. When you have evaded tax for a value more than 2 crore rupees, then you can go for arrest. And for repeat offenders, एक बार आपने arrest कर लिया, next time again is doing, and he's saying, see, yeah, 2 crores I've not touched, you cannot arrest. No. If you're a repeat offender, no monetary limit will apply. For a first time offender, it is 2 crores. For a repeat offenders, there's no limit. Offenses which are specified under section 132, that is, if you are supplied without invoice, you're collecting tax but not paying, you're not collecting tax but supplying, you're claiming input tax credit without actually receive the goods. These are the various provisions. Multiple offenses are there. At least 15 offenses are specified under section 132. If you're doing any of these offense and the value is crossing more than 2 crores, then you can get arrested. Now, arrest also are of two types. That is, if you're doing a cognizable offense and non-cognizable offense. What is cognizable offense? That when the tax evaded or ITC wrongly availed a refund, the value which is involved is more than 5 crores, then it is a cognizable offense. It's a more serious offense where the police can arrest without warrant and bail can be granted. जैसे हम cognizable बोलते हैं non-bailable, it doesn't mean it is non-bailable by anybody. It is bailable by the magistrate. You have to go to the magistrate office. Each state, each jurisdiction, you'll have a magistrate. He only has a power to give you a bail. A normal officer cannot give you a bail. So police can arrest without warrant in case of a cognizable offense. That is, arrest can happen without warrant. That is the meaning of cognizable offense. In case of non-cognizable offense, it is less serious. Cognizable is more serious. In case of non-cognizable, you can get arrested only with the arrest warrant. Here it is without warrant, but in case of non-cognizable, you need an arrest warrant, where the evasion is between 2 crores and 5 crores. For GST terms, it is this. The normal cognizable means that it is without arrest warrant, but non-cognizable means an arrest warrant is required. And the limit also is set here under the GST law for non-cognizable offense between 2 crores to 5 crores. For cognizable offense, it has to be above 5 crores. The deputy and assistant commissioner can grant the bail directly. It is bailable. Who can give you a bail? The bail can be given by the deputy commissioner or assistant commissioner, but non-bailable cases भी अगर आपको bail चाहिए, then you have to go to the magistrate's office. Magistrate production is once the arrest is done. When a cognizable offense happens, it must be produced before 24 hours before the magistrate. जैसे taxpayers का protection हमने बात किया था. This is also protection for the taxpayer. If you have arrested also, फिर भी law says that अगर आपने किसी को arrest किया, आप सीधा जेल में डाल नहीं सकते. आपको उसे magistrate के सामने लेके आना पड़ेगा within 24 hours. Okay, and it must be informed in writing. किस लिए अरेस्ट कर रहे हो आप, उसको आपको राइटिंग में देना पड़ेगा. Who? To the person who are there as his family members and anybody, you have to give them a reason. Arrest should be based on factors like intention to evade, mens rea, मतलब गलत काम करने का intention है, और risk of absconding है, or tampering the evidence है. Then you should arrest, not in a normal cases where you have an intention, you have done a mens rea, मतलब you have a guilty mind. That is called as mens rea. you have a guilty mind, you have a risk of absconding or tampering with evidence. In that situations, you will go for arrest. Up to 2 crores, no arrest. No, up to 2 crores, arrest is there, but it's a non-cognizable offense. So yeah, up to 2 crores, no arrest. Correct, correct. Up to 2 crores, no arrest because every matter, if it is there, can you arrest? No. So they've set a limit saying about 2 crores, up to 2 crores, no arrest. 2 crores to 5 crores, non-cognizable, and above 5 crores, cognizable. Perfectly mentioned, Sanjay. Summons. So this was on arrest. Arrest is only this much. Now we'll get into summons. When can a proper officer summon? A proper officer can summon any person to give evidence or produce documents. This is another power which is given to the officer saying that they can summon any persons when the proceedings are deemed judicial proceedings. Matlab, summons means you're giving a notice to the person, come and give me the statement, come and give me the documents, come and give me some evidence. That is a summons. Now this summon is a judicial proceeding, it's not a normal proceeding. जैसे कोर्ट में किसी को बुलाते हैं, ओथ लेते हैं, वैसे ही कर सकते हैं in case of a summon also. Person is bound to appear and state the truth. मैं गीता पे हाथ रख के कसम खाता हूं, जो भी कहूंगा सच के और कुछ नहीं कहूंगा. सेम थिंग अप्लाइज इन summons also. It's a judicial proceeding, very important. It's a judicial proceeding and a person is bound to appear and state the truth. If you do not come, then you're punishable under IPC and under these various sections, and penalty लग सकता है up to 25,000 rupees for not appearing for a summons. ओके जब भी किसी ऑफिसर को कुछ एविडेंस गैदर करना है, कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट लेना है, ही कैन कॉल द टैक्स पेयर और एनी ऑफ हिज थर्ड पार्टीज, एनी ऑफ दिस क्या बोलते हैं उसको, एनी अदर थर्ड पार्टी जिसका एविडेंस लेना है, दैट पर्सन ऑल्सो कैन बी समन्स्ड. ओके विटनेस, जो विटनेस किसी का लेना है, दैट विटनेस ऑल्सो कैन बी समन्ड, द टैक्स पेयर ऑल्सो कैन बी समन्ड. तो किसी को भी बुलाना है, आप बुला सकते हो. इफ यू वांट टू हैव एनी काइंड ऑफ एविडेंस या सस्पिशन निकालना है, देन यू कैन समन एनी पर्सन. द सीबीआईसी गाइडलाइन ऑन समन सेज दैट इट्स अ लास्ट रिसोर्ट, इट शुड नॉट बी यूज्ड रूटीनली. आपको कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए कि आपने टैक्स ठीक से पे किया है नहीं, दैट इज नॉट द केस. इट शुड बी नॉट बी यूज्ड इन अ रूटीन मैनर. रूटीन मैनर के लिए दूसरे प्रोविजन है. इट शुड बी यूज्ड एज अ मैटर ऑफ लास्ट रिसोर्ट. सीनियर मैनेजर्स should not be summoned at first instance. CEO, CFO है, बस उनको बुला दो, नहीं. They should not be summoned at the first instance unless there is an indication of their involvement. You should not summon. अगर फर्स्ट पार्टी को बुलाते हो, वो बोलता है कि हाँ मेरे बॉस ने इसे इन्वॉल्व किया है, then you should summon a CEO or CFO. Normal cases you should not. And language should not be harsh. Generally, summon में गाली गलौज देना and all happens. Here they clearly said that no, don't do all these things. Your language should not be harsh. Permission, superintendent need prior written permission from assistant commissioner. Superintendent को अगर summons करना है, then he will need written permission from the assistant commissioner. So that is a summons. Summons means calling somebody on record, calling somebody to give evidence, give a statement, to ask some questions. You're asking somebody, that is a summons. I think now there's a new. Correct. So wherever IPC is there, that will be replaced everywhere by the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. That is right. BNS will replace wherever IPCs are there. But the GST law still has it. But BNS says that wherever IPC is appearing, there BNS and BNSs will be relevantly substituted. Access to premises. Who can get access to premises? If you want do audit or scrutiny, to carrying out audit, scrutiny or verification and checks, you can inspect the books, computers and softwares. And once you do the access to premises, duty of the taxpayer is he must furnish the records within 15 days of demand. If the records, what all are covered, they have to give trial balance, audited financial statements, cost audit report, income tax audit report. These things can be given to the person who's coming, that is the officer. First is summons, that he will call the taxpayer to his office. Now, if the summons is come attended, then it's fine. If the and he will give all the documents in the summons, closed it. But if the summoning person is not coming, then they will levy a penalty, and the officer will now get access to the premises. They can go to the premises of the taxpayer and say that we have a access for scrutiny since you didn't come for summons. Okay, they can inspect books, computers, and the taxpayer has to furnish the record within 15 days. So it means that the officer cannot just give summons and keep waiting for him. If he comes, fine. If he doesn't give another summons. They can give repeated summons also. But after summons, if they do not come, then they have access to the premises. And during premises access, they can claim trial balance, audited financial statements, cost audit report, income tax report. These can be sought from the taxpayer. Fine. So these were the main discussion. Now I have some questions. If we can go through it, or if you have any questions, we can discuss on your questions. I have some questions and some multiple choice questions also, so that we may not have MCQs in our exams, but when we go through the MCQs, our our kind of study what we have done, it becomes stronger. Okay, so this is a very small chapter. So we'll take some questions for discussion. Can a GST officer seize your laptop during search? Yes. Correct. Section 67 allows the seizure of things which are useful or relevant for any proceeding. So, things they've said, so not only goods or books, things also they've said. So, it can cover computers and databases can be seized during a search. A search was conducted on 1st January. No show cause was issued within 6 months because show cause notice, as we said, it should be issued within 6 months. So, what is the remedy? A search was conducted. When search is conducted, definitely goods are seized. So what can happen then? Return the goods. Perfect. So the seized goods must be returned. If the proper officer does not extend the period by another 6 months, the retention will become illegal. So two things, 6 months, and the proper officer gets time for applying for extension. If he gets the extension, then he can retain it. Otherwise, any retention beyond 6 months will become illegal, and you can claim your right saying that seizure is illegal, so you have to definitely release the goods. The CEO of a large MNC receives a summons from a superintendent to appear tomorrow. Is this procedure correct? Not correct. Yes. Likely not, because the guidelines say senior management shouldn't be summoned first, and superintendent needs assistant commissioner's approval. If the superintendent first two things he has to do, he should not the summon the CEO firstly, and even if he wants to summon, he needs the assistant commissioner approval. Also, calling someone tomorrow might violate the principles of not taking them wait for respecting time. Wait or respecting them. So three violations he's done. He's not taken the approval of the assistant commissioner. Second, he's called the senior manager directly. And the third is he's just called tomorrow. So the procedure is incorrect. The CEO need not appear. He can respond politely saying that the summons is incorrect. Please issue a proper summons. Can an officer arrest a person for evading 3 crores of tax? Firstly, whether arrest is possible, and if arrest is possible, can the bail is also possible. Correct. Yes, bailable. Perfect. Very nice. Yes, arrest is possible since the amount involved is more than 2 crores, and since it is less than 5 crores, it is non-cognizable and bailable. The deputy commissioner or assistant commissioner can grant him a bail. Bail, we know, right, that he's going on a temporary basis and he's released out. But if some evidence is gathered that you have done wrong, you can catch him back. That's a bail. Okay. So certain MCQs here. What is the maximum time limit for passing a final assessment order under the provisional assessment scheme, including all possible extensions? This we had discussed. 5 years. Correct. That is initial 6 months plus 6 months with the approval of JCRAC and 5 years with the approval of commissioner. So totally 5 years plus 4 years, which is 6 plus 6 plus 4 gives you maximum 5 years. You can pass a final assessment order. Who is a competent authority to order a special audit under Section 66? Correct. Assistant Commissioner directs it. That is proper officer not below the rank of assistant commissioner. He can do a special audit with the prior approval of the commissioner. In case of best judgment assessment of non-filers, okay, non-filers ka best judgment happens in the section 62, who has not filed the returns, but he's registered. The order is deemed withdrawn if the return is furnished within what days? How many days?
दोनों एक साथ क्लैश कर जाएंगे ना नहीं एक साथ इतना बोले वाला होने वाला है ये कब तक कितने देते हैं 5 10 चले थे
90 days. Okay. Yes, it is not 90 days. Valid return should be filed within 60 days to withdraw the order. So here in case of 62, if you have not filed the returns, you will get the thing. And if you file within 60 days, then the order is withdrawn. A search under section 67 can be authorized by any officer not below the rank of search. Search, this is. Joint Commissioner of search. If goods are seized under 67(2), they shall be returned if no notice is issued within how many months? This we had seen, right? It was there in the question also that if the goods are not returned within 6 months and which can be extended by another 6 months, normal it is 6 months itself. Which of the following offenses is cognizable and non-bailable? C, because the limit is 5 crores and here it is a tax evasion of 6 crores. So it is cognizable and non-bailable. Various provisions have various timelines. Yeah, you have to be very careful that books of accounts are asked for. Within what time should we give it? 15 days. Perfect. Expense of special audit is paid by whom? The register person, the chartered accountant, the commissioner, or 50-50 shared equally? C, commissioner. Correct. For scrutiny of returns, if discrepancies are found, the officer issues a notice seeking explanation within what time? For scrutiny of returns, if discrepancies are found, the officer issues a notice and you have to give explanation within 30 days time. Correct. Explanation within 30 days or such further time which may be permitted. So otherwise it is generally 30 days. If they want, they can give an extension also. Last question. When a summary assessment order is passed under 64, the taxpayer can apply for withdrawal within what time? Yes, you can apply for withdrawal again within 30 days time limit. So answer is B, application of withdrawal within 30 days of receipt of order.
Good morning, students, and good morning, sir. I hope the topic inspections, seizure and assessment and audit is clear to you. These two topics are small topics covering enforcement provisions of GST law, and but they are very scoring in nature. So you must go through them because they will take less time of you while you are revising, while you are preparing for the same, but they are very scoring. Generally, you get a one or two questions based upon these provisions and like guidelines for issuing summons, for issuing arrest provisions. Guidelines are important along with this assessment audit. These are the small topics. What are the points which we need to keep in mind while issuing the summon notice and assessment section, all the best judgment assessment, summary assessment. So these are the small a big topic, a chapter covering small topics, and they are very scoring in nature. So enforcement provisions, obviously, the enforcement provisions generally they are the like after this chapter, demand and recovery. Demand and recovery will be taken. One important announcement which I would like to make at this point of time regarding the chapter demand and recovery, which we are going to cover in the next class. So the next class will be there on the coming Friday, right? This Sunday there is no class. Sunday class is cancelled and that has been postponed to the coming Friday. So please be there to in the class in the timely manner so as to understand the concepts of demand and recovery. And the provisions pertaining to demand and recovery are significantly very important. This is the key aspects of enforcement provisions. Section 74A of CGSA 2017 has been effective now, and it has replaced section 73 earlier and section 74 dealing with the different fraud and non-fraud cases. Now only section 74 is there. So please be there in the next session, which will be there on the coming Friday, because Sunday's class has been postponed to the coming Friday. Demand and recovery, and that topic will be taken by C. Arun Chajar sir. So, friends, see you in the next class, and I hope that the concepts which have been taught to you till now they are clear because a lot of MCQs which we can see has also been taken by Deepak sir, which really helps you in understanding the provisions and applying the concepts which you have learned so far. So, please keep practicing even after the session is over. Go through the study material, read the relevant provisions, and try to solve the examples, illustrations given therein, along with the test your knowledge sections. You will solve that questions yourself, and at the end, you will check your answers with the answers given therein. By this manner, you will be able to see whether you are able to correctly apply the provisions in a better manner, and so that during examination you won't have any difficulty. So thank you, friends. See you in the next session on the coming Friday on the topic demand and recovery taken by CA Arun Chatter, sir. Thank you. Yes, session is over. Thank you. Thank you, Ji.